What if the Bible had a prequel that was deliberately erased from history? This lost book, the Bible's secret twin, reveals a forgotten war waged by angels, a divine calendar that controls destiny, and a demonic prince who battled Moses for the fate of humanity. The entire Bible is launched from one iconic sentence. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. But an ancient text proposes a much more detailed version of this story, filling in the blanks that Genesis leaves behind. This hidden origin story, known as the Book of Jubilees, reveals the organization of heaven, the creation of angels, and the cosmic dramas that unfolded before Adam ever drew his first breath. Welcome to Mythic Index, a sanctuary for lost legends and forgotten timelines. Here, we peel back the layers of history to reveal the myths that shaped our world, from the fragments of the forgotten past to the vastness of the night sky. If you wish to ensure you can always find your way back to this archive, please subscribe now. A profound secret lay concealed for nearly 2 millennia in the Qumran caves near the Dead Sea, finally coming to light in the middle of the 20th century. This text, the Bible's secret twin, tells a familiar narrative but with astonishing new details. Imagine discovering a book that not only rewrites the opening chapters of Genesis, but also asserts that it is more ancient than the Bible itself. This is the world of Jubilees, where time is measured in strict 7-year cycles. A divine calendar from heaven dictates all earthly life, and angels are constant observers of every human action. This is no work of fiction. The Dead Sea Scrolls restored this lost text to us, a book that had been absent from Western consciousness for more than 1,500 years. While it was preserved as holy scripture by Ethiopian Christians, its existence was almost entirely forgotten by the rest of the world. Now, its rediscovered pages reveal a strange and fascinating reality. Opening the Book of Jubilees transports you to a universe where sacred history is dictated to Moses on Mount Sinai by angels. In this world, the patriarch Enoch is taught astronomy by celestial beings, and the cosmos operates with the precision of divine clockwork. Demons are given names and specific roles, while human freedom is shown to exist within carefully defined limits. So where did this mysterious book come from? Scholars believe it was composed around the 2nd century BCE, a period when Greek culture posed a significant threat to Jewish identity. Its anonymous author made an audacious claim that this text held information older and more authentic than the Torah itself. Its disappearance from most religious traditions can be attributed largely to its unyielding doctrines. Jubilees allows for very little change or interpretation. The calendar is permanently fixed at 364 days, exactly 52 weeks, with no room for leap years or modifications. Its laws are presented as eternal and absolute. This rigidity proved to be a major obstacle for emerging religious movements that needed to adapt to new cultures and circumstances. Consequently, both the early Christian churches and Jewish rabbis chose to exclude Jubilees when forming their official canons, leaving it to survive as scripture only in Ethiopia. Before we drift deep into the ancient past, take a second to tap the like button. Think of it as placing a bookmark in history, helping others find this quiet corner of the internet. For most of the world, this book became a historical footnote, a path not taken. Yet it refused to stay buried, its ideas deeply shaping the Essenes who hid the Dead Sea Scrolls. Its concepts echo in early Christian writings, and its angels and demons appear in Middle Eastern folklore. Today, this ancient voice speaks again, offering a startlingly different view of reality. We're journeying into a text that rewrites time itself, a book whispering of angels keeping cosmic records and heavenly tablets where even your smallest actions are written. This is a book that shouldn't exist, but does, the Bible's deleted prequel. The Book of Jubilees once held a place of deep respect. In Ethiopia, it remains holy scripture, part of their Bible studied by priests and read in churches. Its importance is proven by the Dead Sea Scrolls, where more copies of Jubilees were found than almost any other text outside the Hebrew Bible itself. This wasn't a minor work. For some, it was essential reading. Early Christians knew this book well, as church fathers quoted, debated, and treasured it. In Ethiopia, its divine status was never questioned, where they call it the Little Genesis, a companion to the first book of Moses, filling in details the Bible left out. So why don't most Bibles include it? The answer reveals how sacred books are chosen. After the temple's destruction, rabbis sought texts to unite their scattered people, but Jubilees was divisive, with its strict solar calendar clashing with the common lunar one. Its rigid rules also limited rabbinic interpretation. For early Christians, Jubilees presented other problems. Its detailed laws could confuse new believers taught that Christ fulfilled the Old Covenant. Its vivid portrayal of angels doing God's work also seemed to diminish Christ's unique role. So, in most places it slowly drifted from Scripture to an interesting ancient text. What makes Jubilees so different? It begins with its concept of time itself. History is divided into precise 49-year Jubilee periods made of 7 weeks of 7 years. Every event has a pre-appointed time, written on heavenly tablets long before it occurs. These cosmic records, kept by angels, contain the past and the future, so nothing is random. Every birth, death, and war follows a divine timetable set at creation. Most striking is how Jubilees rewrites Genesis, adding conversations, scenes, and motives. It tells us which animals lost their speech as punishment after the fall, and it names the sisters who married Cain and Abel. Familiar stories gain new depth, detail, and sometimes new meanings. Angels play a much bigger role than in Genesis. They are present at creation, teach human skills, carry out punishments, and record all human deeds. The book's narrator is one of these beings, an angel of the presence, who speaks directly to Moses. Then there's Mastema, a figure much like Satan but with official duties in God's court. He tests humans, brings accusations, and leads troublesome spirits, but he does this only with God's permission and within strict limits. In this worldview, even evil serves heaven's greater plan. The book presents itself not as a new revelation, but as the oldest truth, claiming to be knowledge given to Moses alongside the Torah that was then lost for ages. It even asserts it is older and more authentic than Genesis itself. This bold claim helped it gain followers, but ultimately led most faith leaders to keep it at a distance. Yet, reading Jubilees offers a window into how some ancient people understood their world, a cosmos of divine order, where celestial bodies meticulously follow paths ordained by God. It's a reality where human choice operates within a pre-written heavenly plan, and time itself possesses a sacred, meaningful structure. The Book of Jubilees, unlike Genesis, opens with a familiar scene, Moses ascending Mount Sinai to receive God's law. But this version of the story you know from Exodus introduces a dramatic new element. As Moses waited among the cloud-covered peaks, a celestial being known as the Angel of the Presence appeared before him with a unique mission. He commanded Moses to document a revelation previously unknown to humanity, instructing him to create a written record so future generations would understand God's faithfulness. The content of this revelation wasn't merely a set of rules. It was a comprehensive account of history spanning from the very beginning of the world right up to that day on Sinai. The angel clarified that his source was the heavenly tablets, God's official cosmic archive, where every event, from the distant past to the far future, was already inscribed. Through this messenger, Moses learned the fundamental nature of time itself. He was shown God's perfect calendar, a system of precisely 364 days, which stood in stark contrast to the imprecise lunar calendars that caused seasonal drift. This divine timetable organized the year into 4 91-day seasons, with each season containing a perfect 13 weeks, for a total of 52 weeks annually. With this calendar, holidays remained fixed, never shifting their dates, because the days of the week aligned perfectly year after year. Jubilees insists that this flawless, constant calendar is the only one sanctioned by God for observing sacred occasions. The angel issued a stern warning to Moses, commanding him to adhere to this divine sequence. Any deviation, the angel stressed, would throw the years into disarray and caused the people to miss the correct timing for their festivals and Sabbaths. To follow any other system was a profound moral transgression that severed the link between humanity and heaven's rhythm. Consequently, any worship conducted on the wrong day was rendered utterly meaningless. While this emphasis on calendars might sound unusual today, it reflects a period when timekeeping was a critical issue. Following the Babylonian exile, Jewish communities were pressured to conform to foreign methods of tracking time, which was seen as a direct assault on their unique identity. The book's insistence on a divinely ordained solar calendar was a powerful act of resistance against these external influences. Moses learned from the angel that time was structured from creation into repeating patterns called Jubilee cycles. These were 49-year blocks, each composed of 7 smaller 7-year sabbatical cycles. Every historical event fits neatly into this meticulous framework, like individual notes in a magnificent symphony orchestrated by God before creation. But the revelation on Sinai was more than just a lecture on history and calendars. The angel also described a universe engaged in a relentless cosmic war. Heavenly angels were assigned to protect the righteous, while a malevolent figure named Mastema, along with his legions of spirits, worked tirelessly to lead people away from God's divinely established order. The angel, foreseeing human defiance, knew that people would eventually abandon the correct calendar and disregard divine laws. This written account was designed to be the antidote, a clear path for humanity to return to heaven's perfect design. So, for 40 days and 40 nights, Moses remained on the mountain, diligently transcribing everything dictated by the angel, the world's true history, God's authentic laws, and the secret of perfect timing. We are told that history is set in stone, yet so much remains buried in the sand. If you believe there are truths about our past that are still waiting to be uncovered, just type the word "hidden" in the comments. It serves as a quiet signal that you are listening. Upon his return from the mountain, Moses carried more than just the iconic stone tablets. He brought with him the Book of Jubilees, a text that frames itself as the ultimate chronicle of time. According to this heavenly vision, humanity retains its ability to choose, yet our decisions are made within a grand framework established before existence began. Our individual choices are our own, but the great arcs of history were mapped out in the heavens before the universe was even born. Time, in this view, is a sacred architecture, and to live correctly is to align with God's divine calendar, the very one revealed to Moses. Genesis famously opens with God acting in solitude, calling the universe out of a formless void. Jubilees, however, paints a radically different picture. The cosmos is already bustling with angelic beings who serve as a celestial audience for the creation of the world. The emptiness of space is replaced with the full courts of heaven, all observing Earth's genesis. The angel explains to Moses that on the very first day, God brought forth the heavens, the earth, the waters, and a vast host of serving spirits, angels of his presence and of holiness, and others governing fire, wind, clouds, darkness, snow, hail, frost, sound, thunder, lightning, cold, and heat. While the 6 days of creation mirror the Genesis account, Jubilees adds that angels were there to witness and document every single divine command in the record books of heaven. God wasn't merely building a planet, he was instituting a complex cosmic order. A sort of heavenly administration was established to manage his new creation, with specific angels appointed to oversee every natural element. The first day saw the creation of the angels themselves, all sorted into a strict hierarchy with defined duties. Some were destined to sing praise before God's throne, some to act as couriers, and others to manage the forces of nature like the wind and seasons. As creation progressed, this angelic bureaucracy expanded. When the waters were separated on the second day, angels were put in charge of them. When dry land emerged on day 3, more angelic supervisors were assigned to their posts. For every single feature of the natural world, heaven appointed guardians and managers, ensuring nothing occurred by chance. A pivotal addition appears on the 4th day with the creation of the sun, moon, and stars. Jubilees reveals that this act also established God's flawless calendar, a divine schedule measuring exactly 364 days. The sun was created as a great sign to mark not only days and seasons, but also Sabbaths, months, feast years, and jubilees. This heavenly clock became a core theme of the book, with the angel stressing that every moment has a purpose in God's design. To disregard this calendar is to willingly step away from the divine order. On the fifth and sixth days, the animal kingdom came into being, just as in Genesis. But Jubilees specifies that exactly 22 kinds of creatures were made. This number corresponds precisely to the letters of the Hebrew alphabet, hinting that creation itself is designed like a holy text. Then came the creation of Adam from the dust, brought to life by God's own breath. Here, Jubilees provides insight into the angelic reaction. Some celebrated this new creation, but others looked on with unease, a detail that hints at the future resentment some angels would feel toward humanity. Eve's origin story is also adjusted. The angel informs Moses that she was formed not on the sixth day alongside Adam, but later, after Adam was already living in the Garden of Eden. This subtle shift in timing has significant implications for the book's perspective on human relationships. Finally, the seventh day's rest is reframed not as a simple cessation of work, but as the creation of the Sabbath itself, the very pinnacle of the week. The angel reveals that the honor of observing this holy day was an exclusive privilege, granted only to the angels in heaven and to the people of Israel on earth. Every other nation was excluded from this sacred observance. In this revised history, the first man and woman are depicted less as the self-directed individuals of Genesis and more like performers on a cosmic stage, observed by an angelic audience. Every decision they make is meticulously recorded in heavenly ledgers, their destiny having been predetermined on celestial tablets. While they possess the ability to choose, their free will operates only within a framework established long before their creation. God settles these first humans in Eden with a purpose that transcends mere gardening. They are tasked with burning incense and presenting offerings, which transforms paradise into the world's first temple. Their primary function from day one was priestly worship, a way to honor the Creator and the cosmic order He designed in the initial 6 days. By the conclusion of its creation account, Jubilees presents a universe far more intricate than the one shown in Genesis. It's a cosmos filled with layers of angels, all ruled by meticulous timing and moving in accordance with patterns set in motion at the very beginning. Humanity is positioned at the very heart of this grand architecture, deeply valued by God, yet simultaneously insignificant within a vast celestial system that observes, documents, and occasionally intervenes in mortal events. When the narrative arrives at the temptation in the garden, Jubilees provides a much deeper look than its biblical counterpart. The recognizable serpent makes its appearance, but it's merely a puppet for a more sinister entity pulling the strings from the shadows. Mastema, the prince of spirits and heaven's own prosecuting attorney. The angel clarifies to Moses that the snake was simply a vessel, used by spiritual powers who were jealous of Adam and Eve's cherished role in creation. And the serpent came and drew near to the woman, the angel recounts. And the serpent said to the woman, "Has God really said, 'You shall not eat from any tree in the garden'?" Unlike the Genesis story, however, this version portrays the event not as an act of simple mischief, but as a critical part of a cosmic test. The central question was whether humanity would stay loyal to the divine order. Eve's reaction follows the well-known sequence. She takes the fruit, consumes it, and then gives some to Adam. But Jubilees frames this act as something more severe than disobedience. It is an act of spiritual contamination. By consuming what was forbidden, the first humans shattered the sacred barrier separating holy things from common things. The sudden realization of their nakedness symbolizes something far deeper than mere embarrassment. It signifies the forfeiture of their divine glory. On that day their mouths were opened and they began to speak, the angel states, and they saw that they were naked. This newfound consciousness represents a departure from innocence, but it's also a form of dark enlightenment. They now possess knowledge of both good and evil, a knowledge that brings anguish instead of true wisdom. In the telling of Jubilees, God's return to the garden is a dramatic event accompanied by thunder and earthquakes. Divine judgment is not a quiet affair but a terrifying spectacle, with the entire garden shaking as God delivers his sentence. The punishments are issued first to the serpent, then to Eve, and finally to Adam, with each penalty perfectly matching their part in this cosmic violation. What follows contains a subtle but significant departure from Genesis. God does not fashion clothing from animal hides for the disgraced couple. Instead, the angel informs Moses, "The Lord God made for Adam and his wife garments of skin and clothed them." This distinction led some ancient interpreters to believe that Adam and Eve were originally clad in garments of light or spiritual bodies, which were now replaced by the mortal flesh that was destined to die. Their expulsion from Eden is then given a specific timeline that Genesis lacks. For 1 week of the very first Jubilee, Adam and his wife dwelled in the Garden of Eden, tending and guarding it for 7 years. This means the first humans experienced paradise for a perfect 7-year cycle before their fall. As they are banished, Jubilees specifies that Adam carried 2 crucial items with him: incense from the garden, to continue proper worship outside its walls, and seeds from its plants, to cultivate food during his exile. These details illustrate that even after their transgression, humans still held a connection to their original duties, to worship God and to care for the earth. The angel tells Moses that Adam and Eve lost far more than just a home. They were severed from a direct connection to holiness. A command was thus recorded on the heavenly tablets concerning them. They were to be kept separate from all impurity. Sin had forged a profound division between the earthly and heavenly realms, cutting off humanity from the divine presence. On earth, a new reality set in, demanding skills never before needed. Adam took to farming the soil as Eve learned the craft of weaving clothes. They mastered agriculture, the use of fire for cooking, and other arts of survival. Their family began with Cain, whose sister was a Wan, and then Abel with his sister Azorah. The Book of Jubilees carefully records these names, filling in blanks that Genesis leaves open. When Seth was born to replace the murdered Abel, his arrival is dated with incredible precision, after 5 weeks in the 4th year of the 5th week of the first Jubilee. This exact timing isn't just trivia, it's central to the book's message that every event happens at an appointed moment, written on heavenly tablets before creation. After Eden, time itself had changed. Humanity now lived by strict measurements of days, weeks, months, years, and the 49-year cycles known as Jubilees. That first Jubilee marks the transition from paradise to a world of work, pain, and death. A great cosmic clock had started ticking, counting down through history toward final judgment and restoration. The angel tells Moses that Adam and Eve wept for their lost garden, offering fragrant plants as gifts to God, asking for forgiveness. Yet they were not abandoned. Divine mercy followed them into exile, with angels teaching them what they needed to survive. The sun and stars remained on heaven's timetable, giving a rhythm to their days and seasons. Human history outside of paradise had begun, a story defined by loss, but also by structure and divine purpose. The world still ran on God's time, and angels continued to watch and record every human deed. Though paradise was gone, Jubilees teaches that the path back remained open for those who followed God's eternal law and honored heaven's calendar. After Eden, life continued, and the human story began to unfold. According to Jubilees, Cain was born in the 1st week of the 2nd Jubilee, and his brother Abel arrived 7 years later. As they grew, the brothers learned the ways of the earth. Abel tended sheep, while Cain worked the soil. They lived according to the land's rhythm, but this peace would not hold. When it came time to make offerings to God, Abel brought the firstborn from his flock, while Cain gathered fruits from his harvest. The smoke from Abel's sacrifice rose straight to heaven, a clear sign of acceptance. Cain's offering, however, drifted sideways, rejected. Jubilees provides a timeline that Genesis omits, revealing the brothers were adults. Cain was 22 and Abel was 20. This first murder wasn't a sudden burst of rage but a festering wound. "Let's walk in the field," Cain said, luring his brother away from any watchful eyes. There he struck Abel down. The very ground that had refused Cain's gift now soaked up his brother's blood, becoming both witness and evidence. God's voice then broke the silence. "Where is Abel, your brother?" "Am I my brother's keeper?" Cain retorted, but God knew. The blood had already spoken from the ground. Unlike Genesis, Jubilees meticulously dates Cain's punishment, recording his exile in heaven's ledger that very year. God's mark on him was a paradoxical mix of a curse and strange protection. East of Eden, Cain built the first city, naming it for his son, an Enoch different from the Skywalker we will meet. This city building has a dark meaning in Jubilees, representing humanity's first independent kingdom, separate from heaven's plan. The evil spread. 4 generations later, Cain's descendant Lamech killed a man and a boy. The original sibling bloodshed grew into the first tribal conflicts, humanity's first civil war. Meanwhile, Adam's new son, Seth, was born, his line offering a chance to remember heaven's calendar. But the damage was done. Death had entered the world, and time was now decaying. Jubilees presents Cain's crime as more than murder. It was the first breach in God's perfect timeline. From then on, earthly events struggled to match heaven's script as the great clock began to drift. Adam and Eve mourned Abel for 4 Jubilees, almost 200 years, making time itself a measure of grief. Their tears taught humanity's first lesson that actions have generational echoes. The ground that drank Abel's blood would never be as fertile. Cain's city would never know peace. The pattern was set: brother against brother, farmer versus shepherd. This wasn't just family drama, it was a cosmic disruption. Angels recorded every date, crime, and consequence. Nothing was random, as even the first murder fit into heaven's timetable. So began humanity's long, violent walk from Eden, always under heaven's gaze. As the calendar turned, the Jubilees were counted, and the angels documented it all. And now to Enoch, the Skywalker. In the 7th generation from Adam came a man unlike any other. His name was Enoch, and Jubilees tells his story with special care. Born in the 6th week of the 7th Jubilee, his life was mapped by sacred numbers. Where Genesis is brief, Jubilees expands his story into something wondrous. He was not merely a good man who walked with God, he was the first human to crack heaven's code. He began to fear God at age 12, and by 65 he had mastered the rhythms of the sun, moon, and stars. The angels themselves taught him to track time's pulse across the sky, so he wasn't just observing the heavens, he was reading them like a text. Jubilees reveals what Genesis only hints at. Enoch was the first astronomer priest. 6 Jubilees after creation, humanity finally had someone to read God's celestial calendar correctly. As the stars turned overhead, Enoch understood. Knowledge grows when it is shared. If you know a fellow seeker, or just someone who needs a peaceful escape into the past, feel free to share this video with them. With the turning of the seasons, he noted their precise timings. Among all humanity, he was the very first to grasp writing, knowledge, and wisdom. According to the Book of Jubilees, prior to his existence, time passed by unobserved by humankind. His life marked the point when the days finally gained a guardian. Over a span of 300 years, Enoch moved through his community, instructing them on the intricate patterns of the heavens. He documented everything, creating the earliest sacred writings. Contained within his scrolls were records of angels and demons, the movements of celestial objects, and the sacred laws of God, making him a vital link connecting the earthly and divine realms. We find an explanation in the Book of Jubilees that is absent from Genesis: the specific purpose behind Enoch's unique position. His calling was to stand in opposition to the fallen angels who were imparting prohibited secrets to humanity. As others were being taught the arts of war and the pursuit of vanity, Enoch was instead a teacher of truth and the proper keeping of time. When he reached his 365th year, a number corresponding to the days in a solar cycle, Enoch did not experience death. Instead, he was taken away. The narrative in Jubilees describes how the earth surrendered him to the very heavens he had so diligently observed. Having already accompanied angels through his deep comprehension, he was now set to physically walk beside them. The account in Jubilees continues, telling how angels transported Enoch directly to the Garden of Eden, where his current duty is to document all the actions of mankind. He assumed the role of heaven's official scribe, meticulously logging every sin and every virtuous act. The individual who had once measured time was now himself beyond its reach. Prior to his departure, Enoch delivered a warning to his son, Methuselah, regarding an impending judgment. He spoke of rising waters that would cleanse the world, paving the way for a completely new beginning. Even this cataclysmic flood was scheduled for a precise moment in the celestial records. For the author of Jubilees, Enoch represents the perfect human, a person who adheres to the correct calendar, obeys divine law, and stands as a testament to cosmic order. He embodies both the scientist and the mystic, simultaneously charting the stars and conversing with angels. The depiction of Enoch in Jubilees is so remarkable not simply because of his trip to heaven, but because he achieved complete mastery over time. Within a text fixated on precise dates, Enoch is presented as the one person who understood it all correctly. His great achievement was synchronizing the planet's natural cycles with the cadence of the heavens. It was through him that humanity was given the authentic calendar, a perfect system of 364 days. This was not the flawed lunar calendar with its drifting months that required constant adjustment, nor was it the profane timekeeping of pagans who worshipped false deities. This was a pure solar year, broken into 4 perfectly equal seasons. His faithfulness to this true time allowed Enoch to evade the ultimate curse of mortality, death itself. He transitioned from the ever-moving stream of earthly days into the eternal domain inhabited by angels. The one who walked toward the sky now lived within it. Following Enoch's departure, his wisdom started to vanish from the world. Humanity lost track of the true calendar, causing them to neglect sacred festival days and sow their crops at incorrect times. With every passing Jubilee period, the chasm between the celestial and terrestrial realms widened. Yet, the Book of Jubilees insists that Enoch continues to observe us. From his post in the Garden of Eden, he chronicles our collective history. The original keeper of time continues to mark it for all of humanity. And a great flood was on its way. Within 10 generations of Adam, the world had thoroughly strayed from its path. Jubilees states that during the era of Noah, the planet became saturated with wickedness and corruption. The meticulous timeline established by God had descended into utter disarray. In a departure from the account in Genesis, Jubilees provides a precise reason for the deluge. While it was true that humanity had become depraved, a far more grievous event had taken place. A group of angels, known as the Watchers, had abandoned their celestial duties to take human women as wives. The offspring of these unions were giants, who began to consume the human population. These same fallen angels instructed people in crafts that heaven had not intended to reveal, including metallurgy, cosmetics, spellcasting, and the misuse of astrology. This was knowledge delivered far too early, without the necessary wisdom to handle it responsibly. The sacred schedule of the cosmos had been shattered. In the midst of this fractured world, Noah was a solitary figure of integrity. The Book of Jubilees describes him as righteous in his every action, a singular point of light in an ever-expanding gloom. Upon reaching the age of 500, at the exact moment foreordained in the celestial tablets, God communicated to him about the approaching flood. And Jubilees includes a disturbing element not found in Genesis. As Noah was constructing the ark, demonic forces under the command of Mastema worked with a desperate urgency to twist humanity. These demonic forces understood their time was running out, knowing the world would soon be purged of their corrupting influence. The ark itself was far more than a simple boat. It was a floating sanctuary, constructed according to heaven's precise specifications. Nothing about its design, its 3 levels, its exact dimensions, its single door, was arbitrary. Every last cubit was a direct reflection of the divine blueprint. In a world consumed by chaos, the ark stood as a solitary example of perfect order. Noah gathered the creatures, bringing 7 of every kind deemed clean for sacrifice and 2 of every other kind. The Book of Jubilees meticulously points out which animals were permissible to eat, emphasizing that divine dietary rules remained critical even during a global crisis. God's established order, it seems, was non-negotiable. With absolute precision, the cataclysm began on the 17th day of the second month, during Noah's 600th year. Torrents of rain fell from the sky while massive floods erupted from the deep, a joint effort by heaven and earth to scour away all wickedness. For 40 days, a deluge of water submerged the entire planet. Jubilees documents the flood's progression with a level of detail that Genesis does not, tracking its timeline like a celestial clock. After rising for 40 days, the water level stayed at its peak for a full 150 days. The waters only started to recede on the first day of the 10th month, and the mountain peaks finally broke the surface in the first month of Noah's 601st year. For the author of Jubilees, these dates are not just narrative flair. They show the flood was not a random act of retribution. It was a meticulously planned purification event, entered into heaven's calendar long before it happened. Inside the ark, a small remnant of life waited, 8 people, pairs of every animal, and a collection of seeds and plants. They were specifically selected as living instruments of the world's rebirth. Once the corruption was gone, their purpose was to start anew. After precisely 1 full year, Noah unsealed the ark and stepped out into a fresh, new world. But the heavens had also undergone a transformation. Jubilees tells us that the aftermath of the flood saw the majority of fallen angels imprisoned and awaiting final judgment. However, their commander, Mastema, pleaded with God to allow a portion of his demonic forces to remain free. Surprisingly, God consented, decreeing that 1/10 could stay while the other 9/10 would be cast into the place of judgment. Evil was not eradicated, but it was now restricted, functioning on a divine leash. Setting foot on the purified earth, Noah's immediate action was to build an altar. He presented offerings from the clean animals, and the smoke that ascended was found pleasing to heaven, unlike Cain's rejected sacrifice. A covenant was then established, with God's promise to never again destroy the world with a flood. But Jubilees inserts a critical addition here. God also restored the true 364-day calendar, lost since Enoch's time, which aligned perfectly with weeks and seasons. The world was reborn, cleansed, though not perfect. Time resumed its march, with the rainbow as a new symbol of divine patience. Just as the flood arrived on schedule, so too would the next appointed judgment. As the waters retreated, Noah's first act was offering thanks at an altar. His second was to plant a vineyard. Jubilees carefully records the date, the 27th day of the second month, a year and 10 days after the flood began. In the newly fertile soil, the vineyard flourished. From his harvest, Noah made wine, unaware of its intoxicating power. After drinking it, he fell into a deep sleep, unclothed within his tent. The event that follows is one of Scripture's most puzzling narratives. Ham, Noah's middle son, witnessed his father's exposed state and told his brothers. In response, Shem and Japheth entered the tent walking backward, holding a cloth between them. They respectfully covered their father without ever casting a glance at him. When Noah awoke and learned what happened, he pronounced a curse, not on Ham, but on Ham's son, Canaan. Genesis offers no reason for this misplaced curse on the grandson, but Jubilees provides the missing context. This version clarifies that Ham didn't just see his father. He violated the sacred boundary of honor between father and son, a serious breach of holy order. Jubilees adds that this incident occurred after Noah had already divided the earth between his 3 sons. Following that land division, Noah's response to the disrespect he'd been shown was not to alter the map, but to pronounce a curse of servitude upon Canaan. The sequence of these events is critical. The earth had already been allocated, making the subsequent family breakdown all the more tragic. "Cursed be Canaan," Noah declared. "A servant of servants he shall be to his brothers." This single pronouncement established a pattern that would reverberate for ages, decreeing that Canaan's lineage would be subservient to the lines of Shem and Japheth. The Book of Jubilees meticulously maps out the dispersal of Noah's family with geographical detail. The central part of the world, which would one day include Israel, was given to Shem. The warm southern lands became Ham's inheritance, while Japheth was granted the colder territories of the north. An oath was sworn by each brother to honor these divinely drawn borders, yet promises can be fragile. According to Jubilees, Canaan coveted the lands of Lebanon and Jordan, ultimately seizing them despite their belonging to Shem. For this transgression, the book reiterates the curse upon Canaan, condemning him for occupying a territory he had not been given. For the original audience of Jubilees, this detail was profoundly relevant, as the book likely emerged when Jewish people were contending with hostile neighboring powers. This expanded narrative of Canaan's curse, therefore, served a purpose beyond just recounting the past. It made a powerful theological claim that Israel's adversaries were illegitimate occupants of land they had taken in defiance of a heavenly mandate. Noah's life continued for another 350 years after the Great Flood, bringing his total lifespan to 950 years. Jubilees emphasizes that he was flawless in his behavior, adhering to God's instructions with unwavering faith. His death is recorded with meticulous precision, occurring at the age of 19 Jubilees, plus 2 weeks and 5 years, a specific count that holds great significance. Just before he passed, Noah delivered a warning to his sons regarding corruption. Here, Jubilees provides information not found in Genesis, stating Noah gave explicit instructions against consuming blood and forbade mixing different species of animals, types of plants, or even fabrics. Maintaining clear distinctions was a holy obligation. In the years that followed, his sons established cities and founded new nations. As children were born, the earth began to repopulate. The first great epic of 10 generations from Adam to Noah had concluded, and a new count was beginning. The cosmic clock continued its inexorable tick toward pivotal figures like Abraham and Moses. The truly remarkable aspect of Noah's story in Jubilees isn't solely the flood. It's the flawless alignment of every event with a divine schedule. The deluge arrived precisely when ordained, and Noah's lifespan corresponded perfectly to its allotted time. In this universe, chance plays no part, every moment is accounted for. This meticulous bookkeeping reveals the core message of Jubilees, that catastrophe itself operates within God's timing, and even curses are part of heaven's grand design. This brings us to the Tower of Babel and the Great Division. 3 generations after Noah, all of humanity came together in the land of Shinar, united by a single language and a shared objective. Their collective cry was, "Come, let us build ourselves a city and a tower with its top in the heavens." Jubilees interprets this monumental undertaking as something more than simple arrogance. It was a calculated effort to survive a potential future flood. Rather than placing their faith in God's covenant, symbolized by the rainbow, they looked for security in a structure of their own making, using materials like baked brick and bitumen chosen for their water resistance. Upon witnessing this human endeavor, God descended for a closer look. His response was not one of fury, a common theme in later retellings, but was instead an act of cosmic reorganization. The moment had arrived for the human race to disperse across the globe as intended. Jubilees provides an exact timeline for this pivotal moment, placing the confusion of languages at the start of the 34th Jubilee. This event shattered the unified human family into 70 distinct nations, a number corresponding to the 70 angels assigned to oversee the world's peoples. This was no arbitrary split. Jubilees explains that lots were drawn, and every angel was assigned a specific people, language, and territory with clear boundaries. In this way, a divine structure was superimposed upon the brewing chaos of humanity. Yet in this grand cosmic sorting, one portion of humanity was intentionally left unassigned to an angelic overseer. The Most High himself took direct charge of a 71st group, the lineage of Shem through Arpachshad, which would eventually produce Abraham. God essentially kept a single bloodline under his personal guidance. With this division established, all work on the tower ceased. The city destined to be known as Babel was left as a half-finished monument to ambition. Its people scattered across the face of the earth like seeds on the wind, heading north, south, east, and west. Every group now possessed a language completely unintelligible to the others. It's here that the Book of Jubilees inserts a game-changing detail absent from Genesis. Once the languages were confused, the vast majority of the supervising angels guided their new nations away from authentic worship. These angelic princes taught humanity how to fashion idols, perform incorrect sacrifices, and crucially, to follow inaccurate calendars. The 70 guardians became 70 deceivers. For a time, only the slice of humanity God had reserved for himself held onto the proper ways. This group alone maintained the true 364-day calendar and remembered the divinely ordained festivals and Sabbaths, while all others descended into ignorance and error. Noah's great-grandson, Nimrod, established the first kingdom in this new, confused world. Jubilees reimagines him not as a mighty hunter, but as the first human to actively wage war against heaven's divine plan. He constructed cities, erected walls, and taught the art of warfare, drawing borders that directly contradicted God's own territorial divisions. What was once a unified human family now lived fractured lives, where cousin could no longer understand cousin and brother took up arms against brother. Each clan staked its claim on a piece of land, forgetting their shared origin, as their angelic custodians led them deeper into spiritual darkness. In this fragmented world, authentic knowledge began to vanish. The sacred calendar that Enoch had received, which Noah had carefully preserved through the Great Flood, was now known to only a tiny remnant. Most of humanity began tracking time by the moon, or by star patterns that failed to align with heaven's precise count. Then, 349 years after the flood, during the first year of the second week of the 10th Jubilee, a child was born in Ur of the Chaldees. His name was Abram, who we know as Abraham. He was the one through whom God would start to reassemble a people capable of remembering heaven's timing. In the narrative of Jubilees, the Tower of Babel represents humanity's attempt to ascend to the divine on its own terms, using its own faulty measurements. They craved unity without a divine core, and sought to touch the sky without following God's designated path. The confusion of languages, therefore, was not merely a punishment but a form of protection. Had humanity remained a monolith, sharing one language and one city, their potential for corruption would have been limitless. By dividing them, their capacity for evil was localized and contained. And so this great division unfolded perfectly according to heaven's schedule. 70 nations, governed by 70 angels, speaking 70 languages in 70 territories, with one special portion set aside, through whom all the others might one day be blessed. The cosmic clock ticked on, the Jubilees were counted, and the stage was finally set for Abraham, the Timekeeper's chosen one. The story then zooms in on a quiet household in Ur, where a young Abraham watched his father, Terah, meticulously crafting idols from wood and clay. A profound sense of unease stirred in the boy, a pull toward something far greater than these inert figures. He looked at the stars and saw not random specks of light, but a message of cosmic order. One night, while his father slept, Abraham picked up a wooden hammer and decisively smashed every idol in the house. He left only the largest one standing, pointedly placing the hammer in its hand. When Terah woke to the scene of destruction, he furiously demanded an explanation. "The big idol broke them," Abraham answered with a calm conviction. "Can't you see the hammer in his hand?" "Don't be foolish," his father snapped back. "These are just things I made with my own hands, they have no power." "Then why," Abraham asked, "do you worship what your own hands have made?" In the Book of Jubilees, this moment was far more than a simple childish act. It marked the beginning of a world-altering journey. While Genesis offers only a brief glimpse, Jubilees introduces us to Abraham, the cosmic revolutionary. His awakening started at 14, looking to the heavens and seeing the stars not as mere lights, but as cosmic timekeepers. He rejected the popular lunar cycles, instead uncovering the true solar year, a perfect 364-day cycle with 4 seasons, each composed of precisely 13 weeks. He announced to his family his refusal to follow the path of lies, abandoning idol worship for the God who orchestrated the heavens. This was more than a spiritual revelation. It was a profound cosmic alignment. When famine forced his family to Haran, Abraham became a teacher. He constructed a special tower for tracking the sun's journey, explaining the true calendar to anyone who would listen. Many dismissed him, but some paid close attention. The angel telling Moses this story explains God watched Abraham with great interest. Abraham stood apart because he didn't just see creation's patterns. He traced them back to their source, understanding that time was a divine gift, a crucial instrument, and an ongoing test. Then a voice summoned him from his sleep beneath the stars. "Depart from your father's home and travel to a land I will reveal to you." This was no simple travel order, but an invitation to enter a different timeline, one synchronized with the celestial design. His long journey was filled with challenges. Jubilees says he erected altars at every major point along the way. These were not just for worship, but were monuments marking points of cosmic importance. Each stone was laid on a specific feast day, a date recorded on heavenly tablets before humanity existed. Upon arriving in Canaan, Abraham wasn't just seizing new land. Jubilees clarifies he was reclaiming territory God had originally given to Shem's descendants, which had been unjustly occupied by Canaan's children. This wasn't a simple tribal dispute, but a grand cosmic reordering. As he journeyed across the land, his travels were more than exploration. He was physically outlining the borders of a holy covenant. Every footstep landed on a timeline established before the world began, with each motion guided by the same hand that arranged the stars. This brings us to the War of the Kings. A massive cloud of dust announced the approach of 4 mighty kings descending upon Sodom. 5 other cities had already fallen to them, reduced to rubble and sorrow. Swept up in the devastation was Abraham's nephew, Lot, taken captive with all his possessions. A single escapee reached Abraham with the news, and the old shepherd acted without delay. While the Genesis account of this story is remarkably brief, the Book of Jubilees expands on the tale with incredible detail, recasting Abraham not as a reluctant warrior, but as heaven's own chosen champion. He assembled a force of 318 trained men, a number Jubilees notes is tied to celestial patterns, and moved with surprising speed. Using the cover of night, Abraham split his small band into tactical groups. They fell upon the king's camps like a ferocious desert storm, sudden and overwhelming. Jubilees emphasizes this was more than brilliant military strategy. It was an exercise in divine timing. Each phase of the attack was initiated at the exact hour predetermined in heaven's sacred records. By dawn, the mighty armies that had terrorized the plain lay scattered. Abraham had not only rescued his nephew Lot, he had also captured vast treasures. Jubilees even specifies this victory occurred on the exact anniversary of Noah's landing after the flood, a date when divine justice is known to manifest in the world. On Abraham's return journey, a mysterious figure appeared on the road. This was Melchizedek, king of Salem and a priest of God Most High. In contrast to Genesis, which mentions their meeting briefly, Jubilees presents Melchizedek as a being who was more than human, perhaps one of the angels assigned to watch over the sacred timeline. Abraham bowed before him, offering 1/10 of all the spoils he had taken. This was not merely a generous gift, it was an act of cosmic acknowledgement. By doing this, Abraham recognized that his victory belonged to a larger pattern written in the stars before his birth. Melchizedek blessed Abraham with bread and wine, symbols Jubilees connects to future feasts. Each element carried a significance tied to the solar calendar, the bread representing harvest festivals, the wine symbolizing the joys of proper seasons. Their meeting lasted precisely 1 day, from sunset to sunset, a perfect Sabbath observance despite the law not yet being given to Moses. According to Jubilees, this was no coincidence, but evidence that true worship follows heaven's divine timetable, not human invention. When the king of Sodom offered Abraham wealth as a reward, the patriarch refused with words that echo across time. "I will take nothing, not even a thread." Jubilees explains this wasn't just noble character, but sacred wisdom. Abraham understood that accepting payment would bind him to human timelines rather than the divine ones he followed. As Abraham journeyed home, The stars blazed overhead in patterns only he could fully comprehend. The Book of Jubilees tells us each constellation confirmed to him that history unfolds not by chance, but by divine design, where every event happens at its appointed time. This leads to the covenant of circumcision and cosmic territory. The night air was heavy with promise as Abraham stood beneath a sky crowded with stars. A voice spoke, "Look up, count them if you can." Abraham's eyes traced the familiar stellar patterns, the same ones he had studied since his youth, now reframed as the map of his family's future. According to Jubilees, this covenant moment didn't happen on just any night. It fell precisely 50 years, a complete jubilee, from the day Abraham had first rejected idol worship. Heaven's clockwork turned with perfect precision. While Genesis describes this covenant briefly, Jubilees expands the scene dramatically. The text says Abraham fell into a deep sleep, but this was no ordinary rest. His spirit ascended to witness the heavenly tablets where all of time, past, present, and future, lay written in pure light. There, Abraham saw how the land would be parceled out according to a divine blueprint, not human ambition. The territory for each tribe had been predetermined before the world began, with every border etched by the same hand that set the stars in motion. This was far more than simple real estate. It was a map of cosmic geography. The next day, a profoundly changed Abraham awoke from his sleep. With the vision still searing his consciousness, a voice gave him a new command, a covenant demanding that the flesh of his foreskin be cut. Where Genesis treats circumcision as a mere sign, the Book of Jubilees frames it as a sacred act of aligning one's physical body with the patterns of the heavens, a modification to mirror the celestial design. At 99 years of age, Abraham showed no hesitation, taking a knife to satisfy the covenant's requirement. Jubilees adds that he did this at the precise moment the sun hit its zenith during the spring festival, marking yet another cosmic synchronization. His entire household then emulated his action, from 8-day-old infants to servants purchased with silver. It was then that the angel Mastema materialized before the throne of God. The great accuser made his case, insisting, "This man is becoming too powerful. He must be tested further." This account of a celestial legal battle is found only in Jubilees, reframing Abraham's future hardships not as arbitrary misfortunes, but as high-stakes cosmic contests. Following his recovery, 3 visitors approached Abraham's tent. Genesis refers to them as men, but Jubilees is explicit. They were angels. These were not random travelers, but heavenly ambassadors on a pre-scheduled appointment, their arrival noted in celestial archives long before Abraham was even conceived. When Sarah laughed at their promise of a son, Jubilees claims that sound reverberated through the halls of heaven. It was recorded there, and then as the source of Isaac's name, centuries before he was born, demonstrating how even human feelings were woven into the cosmic script. After the angelic messengers left for Sodom, Abraham stood gazing at the night sky. The stars, once remote, now felt like family, each one a point of light connected to his bloodline by an unbreakable promise. Jubilees presents him as having become more than human. He was now a living timepiece, his very heartbeat synchronized with the rhythm of the heavens. The morning of Isaac's great test arrived with the rising sun. Abraham saddled his donkey, fastened the wood for the offering, and carried a pot of glowing embers. Isaac walked at his side, a young man strong enough to carry the heavy load, yet innocent enough to trust his father without question. While the Genesis version is famously sparse, Jubilees injects the story with layers of meaning. Their journey to Moriah began on a very specific date, the future Day of Atonement. This timing was no accident, it was part of a careful cosmic plan. For 3 days, they traveled in near silence. Jubilees adds that they crossed rivers with names straight out of Eden and climbed hills that mimicked the mountains where angels met. Every step they took followed a pre-drawn map in heaven's archives. On the 3rd day, Abraham saw their destination. But in a departure from Genesis, Jubilees states he didn't need a sign. He recognized the spot from a deep, ancient memory. For this was the same place where Adam had first offered a sacrifice, and where Noah had built his altar after the flood. Isaac, seeing the wood and the fire ready, turned to his father and asked the obvious question, "Where was the lamb for the offering?" Abraham's response was quiet and certain: God himself would provide one. In the Genesis account, this feels like a gentle way to hide the truth, but the Book of Jubilees presents it as a pure prophecy. Because of his earlier covenant vision, Abraham knew precisely how this moment would play out. Once they stood at the summit, Abraham assembled the altar with meticulous care. He didn't just pile up random rocks. Each stone was positioned to match celestial patterns he had been shown in dreams, forming a kind of cosmic map. The Genesis story suggests Isaac was unaware, but Jubilees claims he understood far more. He even told his father to bind him tightly so he wouldn't flinch and spoil the perfection of the sacrifice. Far from a terrified victim, the Isaac of Jubilees is a willing participant in a grand cosmic drama. At 25 years old, he could have easily resisted his elderly father, but instead chose to submit. As the knife was raised, it was as if all of heaven held its breath. A voice then cried out, arresting Abraham's motion. An angel appeared with a ram entangled in a nearby thicket, the very same angel, in fact, who had overseen the covenant. While Genesis frames this entire event as a trial of Abraham's faith, Jubilees sees it as a cosmic rehearsal. The drama on that hill was a mirror, reflecting events scheduled for the distant future when other fathers would be faced with losing their firstborn sons on that exact calendar date. After the ordeal, a transformed Abraham and Isaac descended the mountain, arriving home, according to Jubilees, on the very day that would one day be called Passover, another time when death would spare the faithful. This impeccable timing was no coincidence. It fulfilled patterns etched onto the heavenly tablets before creation itself. This brings us to Rebekah, Jacob, and their angelic inheritance. Abraham's oldest servant had been dispatched on a holy quest to find Isaac a wife from his own lineage, not from the daughters of Canaan. His caravan arrived at a well just as the local young women were gathering water. According to Jubilees, this wasn't about simple tribal loyalty. It was a matter of cosmic imperative. The moment Rebekah appeared, the servant instantly recognized her. Genesis describes a test involving offering water, but Jubilees explains that the servant knew her because she was a perfect match to an angelic description given to Abraham years prior. Her face, her gait, and even the tone of her voice had all been foretold. Rebekah's journey to meet Isaac was another event guided by divine timing. She reached his tent on the exact anniversary of his mother Sarah's death, a date noted as important in heaven's ledgers. Their union was no accident but a perfectly orchestrated event. For the next 20 years, Rebekah was unable to conceive. Genesis states this fact plainly, but Jubilees provides the reason. It was a deliberate delay. The twins she was destined to bear had to be born in a particular year that aligned with specific celestial cycles. Even the fertility of humans was subject to heaven's grand schedule. When Rebekah finally became pregnant, the turmoil in her womb was more than just physical. Jubilees explains that two separate destinies were warring for dominance inside her, not just two brothers, but two potential futures for all of humanity. Every kick and turn she felt was a sign of cosmic forces clashing. Overwhelmed, she cried out, "Why is this happening to me?" While Genesis says she went to inquire, it doesn't say where. Jubilees fills in this detail, telling us she sought out Melchizedek, who was still alive and acting as the keeper of heaven's records. He told her that two nations were inside her, and that the older would ultimately serve the younger. These words were not mere comfort, they were a cosmic decree. According to Jubilees, this prophecy was read aloud directly from the heavenly tablets, where it had been written before time began. At their birth, the twins were polar opposites. Esau came out first, red and covered in hair, as if grabbing at life itself. Jacob followed right after, his tiny hand clinging to his brother's heel. Genesis notes this as a curious detail, but Jubilees interprets it as profoundly symbolic. One child was racing ahead of divine timing, while the other was carefully keeping pace with heaven's rhythm. As they grew, this difference became more pronounced. Esau roamed the wild as a hunter, while Jacob remained by the tents, absorbing the sacred stories and the holy calendar. In the view of Jubilees, this was not a simple difference in personality, but one of spiritual orientation. Esau was driven by human impulse. Jacob was tuned to a divine frequency. The famous day Jacob cooked a stew was, according to Jubilees, anything but random. The red lentil soup was simmering on the precise anniversary of Abraham's covenant vision. Its aroma filled the camp just as Esau returned, exhausted and famished from the hunt. "Give me some of that red stew," Esau demanded. "I'm starving." Jacob's reply was direct. "First, sell me your birthright." In Genesis, this exchange can seem opportunistic on Jacob's part. But Jubilees casts it in a different light, suggesting Jacob's motives were far deeper. Jacob understood that the birthright was already his, a destiny pre-written by the heavens. His actions weren't a theft but a reclamation, an effort to align his life with a pre-existing cosmic assignment. As Isaac's age advanced and his sight failed, Rebekah recalled a specific angelic prophecy given before her sons were even born. The Book of Jubilees clarifies that the clever plan to secure the blessing for Jacob wasn't her own invention. Instead, she was meticulously following angelic instructions delivered in dreams, which detailed exactly how to ensure heaven's decree came to pass. Jubilees paints a scene where heavenly beings looked on with approval as Jacob, disguised in his brother's clothes, received their father's blessing. The act is reframed not as a simple deception, but as a vital course correction. It was a precise maneuver to place the correct heir in his designated role at the appointed moment, syncing earthly affairs with the celestial timetable. The family was nearly ripped apart by Esau's fury upon learning what had happened. Yet in the narrative of Jubilees, even this explosive anger was a functional part of the grand design. This rage became the catalyst that propelled Jacob on his flight, initiating a journey that would reshape him and his descendants, all perfectly in step with heaven's predetermined schedule. That night, as Jacob laid his head on a stone pillow, the air was still and cold. He was a man in exile, running from his brother's wrath and caught in a lonely limbo, no longer at home, but not yet at his destination. He had no idea that this desolate place was about to become a direct link between the earthly and heavenly realms. As he slept, a truly extraordinary vision unfolded. An immense stairway rose from the ground beside him, ascending far beyond the clouds and out of sight. This was more than just a fleeting dream about his escape. It was a profound look into the very mechanics of the universe, an order that Jubilees meticulously details. Angels moved along this luminous structure, not as scattered couriers, but as the disciplined legions of heaven. They were traversing a veil that is rarely parted for human eyes, passing between two separate dimensions. Their constant movement up and down involved relaying messages, executing decrees, and upholding the divine structure that, according to Jubilees, underpins all of reality. Jubilees presents this event as a cosmic border crossing. Jacob had inadvertently found a thin place, a location where the boundary between heaven and earth was permeable. Where Genesis offers a concise account, Jubilees elaborates, turning the vision into a comprehensive celestial summit. From the very top of the ladder, God addressed Jacob, reconfirming the covenant made with his grandfather. The promise was that the very ground on which he slept would one day be the inheritance of his innumerable offspring, and that entire nations would be subject to his family line. Critically, Jubilees injects the element of time into this promise. It transforms a general assurance about the future into a specific, dated appointment on the celestial calendar. Upon waking, shaken with reverence, Jacob's response goes far beyond what Genesis describes. In the version from Jubilees, he conducts a detailed ceremony to commemorate the precise date and time of the divine meeting. This ritual involves anointing the stone with oil, making solemn oaths, and instituting the first tithe, a pledge to return 1/10 of all his possessions to God. In doing so, Jacob takes on the role of a timekeeper, following in the footsteps of Abraham. However, even as Jacob consecrates this sacred ground, a malevolent force is observing his every move. Mastema, the great accuser of heaven, is watching with mounting concern. This mounting concern is well-founded, as the divine promise to Jacob directly threatens Mastema's influence over the nations. Jubilees reveals that after the confusion at Babel, Mastema had tried to claim dominion over all Gentile lands, a claim that Jacob's blessing now actively challenges. The text hints at unseen spiritual battles unfolding just out of sight. Angelic protectors are said to have guarded Jacob's path to Laban, fighting off dark spirits that sought to lead him off course. Every phase of his journey is executed precisely on heaven's schedule, happening not a moment too soon nor a day too late. This meticulous timing is central to Jubilee's most cherished theme. Nothing in human history is a random occurrence. Jacob's ladder isn't merely a beautiful vision. It is presented as proof of active, ongoing celestial management. Angels in this book are far more than messengers. They are enforcers of cosmic law who meticulously track human actions and report every single detail back to God. Jacob's dream confirms his position as the next crucial link in a divine plan stretching across innumerable generations. The very ground where he rested will one day become the site of a holy temple. The God who addresses him from the ladder's peak will establish covenants with his descendants for ages to come. Meanwhile, the angels ascending and descending the ladder will carry on with their ceaseless work, keeping time, marking events, and ensuring that heaven's will is made manifest on earth. In this view, Bethel is not just a place of worship, it's a timestamp in the grand chronicle of creation. The story of Dina, however, offers one of the most drastic departures from the biblical account. While Genesis tells a tragic story of violation and brutal revenge, Jubilees completely transforms it into a narrative about defending tribal purity and executing divine justice. The tale begins in a familiar way. Jacob's daughter Dina goes to visit the women of the nearby city of Shechem. While there, the local prince sees her, desires her, and takes her. What Genesis portrays as a grim account of human passion and retribution, Jubilees reinterprets as a cosmic drama focused on keeping bloodlines pure and fulfilling heavenly decrees. In Genesis, Jacob's sons deceive the men of Shechem into getting circumcised, only to attack them during their recovery. It's a deeply troubling story of trickery and disproportionate violence, but Jubilees casts their actions in a righteous, almost sacred light. The text declares with certainty, "For this deed they are inscribed for blessing in the heavenly tablets." How could such a brutal massacre earn heavenly praise? It's because Jubilees considers intermarriage to be a profound sin against the established cosmic order. The book explains that long ago, Noah had divided the entire world among his sons, assigning each a specific territory. The Shechemites were living in land allotted to Shem, but Canaan, who was previously cursed, had illegally settled there. Their very presence was a violation of divinely drawn boundaries. From this perspective, Dina's brothers are not just vengeful siblings. They become agents of divine justice, violently restoring a border that should never have been crossed. Furthermore, Jubilees provides the exact date of this event, underscoring that the timing itself aligns with celestial patterns set at creation. The angel narrating the story to Moses clarifies that this bloodshed is a warning to all of Israel's future generations. Any person who marries outside the chosen line will face divine punishment. The brothers, therefore, did not overreact. They fulfilled an eternal law that was written before the beginning of time. For this, Simeon and Levi, who are often criticized in other Jewish texts, receive special praise in Jubilees. Their acclaim is eternalized by having their names inscribed for blessing upon the heavenly tablets. These are the very same celestial records that meticulously log every moral decision, each life and death, and every observance or violation of divine law. The narrative even reshapes Jacob's initial fury toward his sons. What was once a fear of reprisal from local tribes is recast as needless anxiety, because a celestial shield protects them for their righteous deed. As they travel from Shechem, angelic beings intervene to stop any potential vengeance, ensuring the family's safety. The concept of blood purity emerges as a core theme for Jubilees in this account, framing the mingling of chosen and unchosen lineage as a danger to the entire heavenly blueprint. It was essential for Jacob's descendants to stay distinct and free from external influences. This separation was a mandate from the celestial ledgers, a rule enforced by angels, and a duty for the patriarchs to uphold. An event that Genesis portrays as a complicated human drama is converted by Jubilees into a straightforward lesson on the importance of maintaining strict boundaries. In this violent episode, the elements of time, location, lineage, and law all converge perfectly. For those reading Jubilees, the narrative of Dina is less about personal suffering or retribution and more about upholding the universal order. The bloodshed in Shechem simply becomes another line item written into heaven's everlasting logbook. This brings us to Joseph's sale, an event that perfectly preserves the divine timeline. Everyone knows the cherished story of Joseph, the younger sibling betrayed by his jealous brothers who then ascends from servitude to greatness. Yet, within the pages of Jubilees, this well-known account gains a fresh layer of meaning, serving as further evidence that heaven's predetermined schedule is unbreakable, no matter the extent of human wickedness. Much like in Genesis, Joseph's saga opens with him as the favorite son, gifted a unique coat and dreaming of his own magnificent future, which sparks his brothers' envy. However, Jubilees inserts critical information about the timing of these events, details which are absent from the Genesis account. The plot to harm Joseph is hatched by his brothers on the very same day their father, Jacob, is observing the anniversary of his own mother's passing. This alignment is presented not as a mere coincidence, but as a profound symmetry. A moment of sorrow in one generation mirrors another, and it's all documented within heaven's flawless records. After stripping the coat from Joseph, his brothers throw him into a pit. While Genesis attributes this betrayal solely to human feelings like jealousy and rivalry, Jubilees pulls back the curtain to show supernatural influences. The accuser, Mastema, exploits this very opportunity to launch an assault on Jacob's faith. This malevolent entity incites the brothers, pushing their animosity to an unnatural peak. But an event that appears to be a win for the forces of darkness is, in reality, moving heaven's agenda forward. Joseph's destiny to travel to Egypt, to achieve a high position, and to ultimately rescue his family from starvation was already inscribed on the heavenly tablets before he was even born. The Midianite traders who rescue Joseph and transport him to Egypt are simply treading a route that was charted before creation. This apparent tragedy is actually serving a much larger design. While the brothers think they have altered their family's destiny, they have only fulfilled their designated roles in an immense celestial play. The book meticulously tracks the exact schedule of Joseph's journey. It tallies the number of days from his exit out of Canaan to his promotion within Pharaoh's court. No event occurs ahead of or behind schedule. The divine clock maintains its perfect accuracy, even in distant, non-sacred territories. In Jubilees, Jacob's profound sorrow is given particular focus. The patriarch dons sackcloth and weeps bitterly for his son whom he believes is lost. The text then discloses a detail missing from Genesis. Angelic beings are observing his anguish and chronicling every tear. Jacob's suffering is therefore not pointless. Instead, it is quantified and entered into the comprehensive record that heaven maintains on all of humanity. In the narrative of Jubilees, the act of Joseph's brothers deceiving their father with a goat's blood-soaked coat transcends a simple family lie. This deception is portrayed as a brief triumph for Mastema, the cosmic accuser who thrives on untruth. But this act of falsehood is merely a cog in a much larger machine, propelling history toward its predetermined conclusion. Everything from Joseph's fall into servitude and wrongful jailing to his remarkable ability to interpret dreams happens exactly as designed by the divine architects. Moments that appear to be random luck are, in reality, celestial appointments, scheduled with precision down to the very day and hour. The book highlights that during Noah's partitioning of the world, Egypt was allocated to the lineage of Ham. Joseph's arrival there signifies a temporary violation of these divinely set borders, but it's a violation with a grand purpose, to set the stage for the massive departure that will follow. While imprisoned, Joseph's experience is not one of simple survival. It's an act of witness, turning his hardship into a testament of faith. Angels meticulously chart his journey, checking his progress against the timeless calendar established before the world began, while heavenly recorders document every detail in their flawless ledgers. This marks the conclusion of Joseph's personal story and the start of his people's enslavement. Just as foretold, the famine arrives, bringing 7 bountiful years to a close and ushering in 7 years of scarcity. For Jubilees, this isn't a random catastrophe. It's a demonstration of divine accuracy, a calculated punishment executed exactly on time. Having stocked Egypt's granaries, Joseph is prepared. His brothers, driven south by hunger, soon arrive, and the reunion mirrors the account in Genesis. He tests them, accuses them, and finally reveals himself. But Jubilees layers this story with a critical element: specific dates. The text painstakingly notes the exact moment Jacob learns his son lives and the day he sets out for Egypt. His entire pilgrimage corresponds to cosmic patterns, bringing to fruition the divine pledges made to Abraham. Pharaoh extends a warm reception upon Jacob's arrival, but this hospitality is actually the start of a heavenly trial. The Israelites are not supposed to make Egypt their permanent residence. It is a temporary refuge and a place of testing. Celestial records have already documented the precise duration of their sojourn, the trials they will face, and the powerful rescue that awaits them. Joseph places his family in the region of Canaan, and they flourish, but the book cautions that this success is not without its perils. The comfort introduces the threat of assimilation, the danger they might forget their identity and embrace the customs of Egypt. Before his death, Joseph convenes his brothers, binding them with a solemn vow to transport his remains back to Canaan. This request is less about family feeling and more about a fundamental cosmic principle. Joseph's body is destined for the promised land. Following his passing, the rise of a new pharaoh who had no memory of Joseph signifies a clash of cosmic forces. This new king shatters the delicate equilibrium Joseph had established. Over time, in phases meticulously documented in heaven, Egyptian fear hardens into policy, and wariness transforms into brutal oppression. The descent into slavery is a gradual process that plays out over a specific, recorded number of years. When Pharaoh commands the drowning of Hebrew infants, Jubilees reveals that Mastema, the celestial prosecutor, is the true power behind the edict. Every infant lost represents a direct attack against the sacred lineage promised to Abraham. Still, amidst this profound darkness, the divine schedule continues to operate without interruption. This period of suffering has a predetermined end. The birth of Moses serves as a perfect example, an event that wasn't accidental but was meticulously scheduled and recorded on heavenly tablets before the world began. Heaven's ordained moment for the deliverer's arrival was met with perfect precision, neither early nor delayed. According to Jubilees, angelic beings kept a vigilant watch over the chosen people throughout their anguish. These celestial guardians documented every lash from an Egyptian whip, every tear shed by a Hebrew, and the escalating volume of a collective cry destined to reach heaven's throne and set in motion the most epic tale of liberation. As the intensity of their bondage grew, the divine clock continued to tick with flawless accuracy. This brings us to the conflict between Moses and Mastema. In a dramatic retelling, the Book of Jubilees injects a stunning new dimension into the well-known Exodus narrative. It claims that behind Pharaoh's obstinance was Mastema, heaven's accuser, who was waging a conflict across both the earthly and spiritual realms. We know the story of Moses being raised in Pharaoh's court, his flight after killing an Egyptian, and his eventual return years later, now armed with divine authority. What Genesis omits, Jubilees illuminates. Mastema himself was waiting to stand against him. The expected refusal from Pharaoh, when Moses first demanded the Hebrews' freedom, is given a new context in Jubilees. Mastema was the force fortifying the king's resolve and hardening his heart to a degree far beyond typical human stubbornness. The confrontation was transformed from mere political defiance into a battle of cosmic proportions. When the plagues commence, Jubilees offers a description far different from that in Exodus. Every plague is reframed not as a simple natural catastrophe, but as a calculated angelic strike against particular Egyptian gods and the shadowy forces they represent. For instance, the Nile turning to blood was more than a stark warning for Pharaoh. It was a direct assault on the river deities of Egypt. Similarly, the moment Moses' staff becomes a snake and consumes the serpents of the magicians is interpreted as something beyond a clever illusion. This was heaven issuing a direct challenge to the magic of Mastema, demonstrating that divine might was vastly superior to the dark arts. The failure of the Egyptian magicians wasn't just incompetence, they were simply serving an inferior master. Mastema's reaction became increasingly desperate, leading him to teach the Egyptian sorcerers the secrets to replicating some plagues. His goal was to persuade Pharaoh that Moses possessed no unique power, a strategy that briefly succeeded. When Pharaoh witnessed his own magicians produce blood and frogs, his heart was further hardened. Yet, Mastema's magic soon faltered as the plagues grew more severe. The text makes it clear that heaven imposes boundaries on the accuser's abilities. He was unable to generate lice or any creature smaller, revealing that his power has no access to the realm of true creation. This limitation forced the magicians to concede defeat, proclaiming, "This is the finger of God." With every refusal from Pharaoh, the divine assault intensified. Plagues of flies, diseased livestock, and boils were each unleashed upon a specific Egyptian god, systematically dismantling Mastema's second-hand authority. The encroaching darkness that covered Egypt was not merely an absence of sunlight, it was a powerful symbol of the accuser's waning power. Then, as the final plague, the death of the firstborn, drew near, Jubilees unveils a truly astonishing detail. Mastema himself was tasked with the role of the destroyer, albeit operating under the absolute control of heaven. In a stunning reversal, the very entity that wanted to annihilate Israel was made into the reluctant instrument of judgment against Egypt. Jubilees also gives special significance to the Passover. The blood applied to the doorposts acted as more than a signal for a passing angel. It was a supernatural barrier that directly restrained Mastema, preventing him from entering any home marked by it. His dark power was rendered useless against this simple act of protected obedience. Just as the Hebrews were set to depart from Egypt, Mastema launched one last desperate effort to maintain their bondage. It was he who compelled Pharaoh to chase after them, even after the king had already consented to their freedom. The accuser understood what was at stake. A defeat at the Red Sea would have consequences for generations to come. The parting of the waters for Israel and the subsequent collapse upon Egypt's chariots is viewed by Jubilees as something far beyond a natural phenomenon. The Red Sea was transformed into a literal battlefield for cosmic powers. On one side, angels held back the sea. On the other, Mastema propelled the Egyptian army into the trap. This contest was won decisively by heaven. The destruction of Pharaoh's army was not merely the end of a military pursuit. This event shattered Mastema's influence over Israel for a significant period, forcing the accuser into a wounded retreat. Though Mastema was forced to withdraw, his power was severely diminished, but he was far from eliminated. He would surely re-emerge to challenge the Israelites during their desert travels. While Moses appeared to be the hero of the hour, the Book of Jubilees insists that the real triumph belonged to a perfectly orchestrated celestial schedule. Every single plague, every confrontation, and every miracle unfolded precisely as foretold on the heavenly tablets, a divine itinerary that even Mastema was powerless to alter. And so, with absolute cosmic punctuality, the great departure from Egypt commenced. Imagine the scene as the first light of dawn spills over the desert, illuminating countless Hebrew families poised on the brink of a new life, turning away from centuries of slavery forever. This timing wasn't merely fortunate, it was flawless, an appointment etched into the fabric of heaven before the first human ever drew breath. In the view of Jubilees, this escape was far more than a simple historical migration. It was the fulfillment of a cosmic rendezvous, executed with meticulous divine accuracy. An angel reveals to Moses that this very day, the 14th of the first month, had been circled on heaven's calendar since the dawn of creation, destined as the moment liberation would erupt like the morning sun. The people followed their instructions to the letter. At dusk, they slaughtered lambs, smeared blood upon their doorframes, and consumed their final meal in Egypt ready to move, equipped with sandals and staves. However, Jubilees introduces a fascinating detail absent from Genesis. It claims that heavenly angels were not just flying past the marked homes, but were stationed as active protectors, forming a divine guard. This clarifies that the destroyer was no abstract plague. It was a deployment of Mastema's own forces, actively probing for any weakness in the celestial shield. As the angel explains to Moses, God executed every part of the plan flawlessly. Each warning, each plague, and the escape itself followed a predetermined sequence established before time began. This means the Egyptians were not just battling a series of unfortunate calamities, they were contending with the armies of heaven, which operated with the unstoppable precision of a clock. The exact date of their freedom was no accident. It was the precise fulfillment of a covenant made with Abraham exactly 430 years prior. Jubilees also offers a unique perspective on the famous scene at the sea. When Moses lifts his staff, instead of the waters simply parting by a raw display of power, the sea actually recedes to the boundaries set for it at the beginning of creation. The very fabric of the natural world bends to accommodate God's agenda. Consequently, the destruction of Pharaoh's army isn't just a natural event. Their true crime was violating sacred time by daring to interfere with the heavenly timeline. The waves crashing down on them represent something more profound than returning water. It is the force of time itself, annihilating those who attempted to resist its unstoppable current. As the liberated people celebrate with song on the far shore, Jubilees adds another beautiful layer. Celestial choirs join the chorus, with angelic voices mingling with those of mortals. This celebration of freedom echoes through multiple dimensions, establishing the first Passover not as a historical memory, but as an event perpetually honored in the courts of heaven. As the journey toward Sinai begins, this divine scheduling continues. Every stop for water, every encampment, and every trial in the desert occurs in perfect harmony with a heavenly blueprint. Even the miraculous appearance of manna is not a random occurrence. It descends only when the celestial storehouses are opened at their divinely appointed moments. Upon their arrival at the mountain, Moses' ascent is for a purpose greater than just receiving the law. He is there to be taught how to synchronize earthly time with the cosmic clock of heaven. His initial instruction isn't a list of prohibitions, but a lesson in timing. He learns that the feast days, the Sabbath rests, and the years of Jubilee are all designed to bring human life into alignment with the rhythms of the universe. Moses comes to understand that observing Passover is more than just recalling a story of liberation. It is an act of participating in a state of freedom that exists eternally in heaven, and with every correct observance, the earthly and heavenly realms sync up perfectly. This delicate connection between worlds, however, is incredibly fragile. The very structure of creation shudders each time humanity forgets the proper timing or dares to alter it. From this perspective, the covenant at Sinai transforms into something far beyond a set of rules. It becomes a roadmap for navigating existence in complete harmony with divine will. Consequently, the most profound sin isn't merely disobeying a command. It is the catastrophic act of breaking time itself. On the real Mount Sinai, the ground quakes violently. Smoke billows from the summit, and lightning illuminates the stone peaks as Moses ascends, leaving the Israelite camp behind. It's at this point that the Book of Jubilees dramatically diverges from the more familiar biblical narrative. Up on the mountain, Moses isn't just handed laws etched in stone. He is given the entire secret history of time. The Angel of the Presence, a top-tier celestial minister, discloses to Moses that the knowledge he's receiving was recorded eons before the first human existed. "I will tell you," the angel declares, from the beginning of creation until my sanctuary is built among you for all eternity. This reveals the true mission of the Sinai event. It wasn't just about law-giving, but about time-teaching. Moses discovers that before the universe was formed, God established all the laws of heaven, which included the perfect 364-day calendar. Jubilees places immense importance on this specific number. Because it is perfectly divisible by 7, every date lands on the exact same day of the week, year after year. This divine design eliminates any temporal drift, confusion, or the need for human adjustments. The angel then presents Moses with the heavenly tablets, which contain not just the commandments, but the complete script of history, written before time even began. Every single feast day and appointed time was fixed before humanity drew its first breath. The sun, moon, and stars were not placed in the sky merely for light, but to serve as the moving hands of a grand cosmic clock. As lightning dances across the mountain, Moses learns that this sacred knowledge was once known by Adam, recorded by Enoch, and preserved by Noah through the flood. Yet, humanity repeatedly strays from heaven's flawless timing. They follow the fickle moon instead of the constant sun, add days where none belong, and hold celebrations at incorrect times, causing creation itself to groan in distress. The tablets shown to Moses are not a simple rulebook, they are the architectural plans for reality. The angel clarifies how every law corresponds to a heavenly event. The Sabbath reflects eternal rest, Passover is an echo of eternal freedom, and the Day of Atonement mirrors a cosmic cleansing. These are not just dates on a calendar, but portals through which human experience can momentarily touch divine reality. What might seem like an endless list of dry dates and times in Jubilees is actually the book's very heartbeat. The angel needs Moses to grasp that calendar accuracy isn't about scheduling. It's about achieving harmony with creation's fundamental patterns. While the Israelites wait below, Moses is taught that sin is as much about timing as it is about action. Eating forbidden food is a transgression, but eating permitted food at a forbidden time is an act of cosmic rebellion. Working is a virtue, but working on the Sabbath actively tears the fabric separating the earthly and heavenly realms. The angel explains this is why Israel was chosen, not simply to obey rules, but to become the keepers of time. They are to be the nation that aligns earth with heaven through perfectly timed rituals. Their celebrations and fasts aren't just cultural traditions, they are cosmic tuning forks designed to bring all of creation back into resonance. Moses trembles, finally understanding the immense weight of this revelation. Every single date meticulously recorded in Jubilees, and there are hundreds, is a precious opportunity for heaven and earth to align, a moment for humanity to step into divine patterns. According to Jubilees, the true unveiling at Sinai wasn't about morality but meaning. It wasn't about how to behave, but how to belong within time itself. The law, seen this way, is not a burden but a liberation. It allows humanity to move in rhythm with the angels, participating in time as heaven itself experiences it. As Moses prepares to descend, the angel tells him one more thing. The angel gives a final warning: this heavenly calendar will be opposed. Nations will create their own times, and even some of Israel will stray. But those who keep heaven's clock will never be truly lost and will always have a path back to divine harmony. This is why Jubilees reveres the law. While most people see laws as restrictions, Jubilees sees them as windows, openings through which divine light pours. The angel describes each command not as a burden but a gift. Each rule connects to cosmic history, a thread woven into creation's tapestry, revealing how reality truly works. Take the Sabbath. It's not just a day off, but a taste of what angels experience eternally. The angel says even heaven's highest powers observe it for harmony, not rest. The seventh day isn't arbitrary, it's essential to creation's rhythm. God blessed this day alone, with the angel declaring, "All holy things are blessed and hallowed on this day." When humans honor Sabbath, they align with powers they barely comprehend. The food laws might seem strange, but Jubilees frames them as protection. The angel explains that foods connect to spiritual forces, some strengthen the human spirit, others invite corruption. These laws concern spiritual integrity, not just health. Sexual regulations are similar, reflecting heavenly order instead of just moral codes. Violating these boundaries, the angel reveals, doesn't just harm humans, it tears at creation's fabric. Following them is an act of cosmic repair. Even stranger rules make sense this way, like covering nakedness when relieving oneself. This isn't about modesty, but maintaining the boundary between holy and common, mirroring how angels shield their eyes in heaven's sacred spaces. For Jubilees, the law's beauty is its perfect timing. Circumcision on the 8th day, offerings at precise times, festivals tied to the sun's position. These details are doorways to eternal patterns. The law in Jubilees is unlike other Jewish texts of its time. Here, laws aren't open to interpretation, they're fixed like creation itself. The angel says these commands existed before humans and will outlast them. They aren't cultural artifacts, but cosmic constants. This explains the book's obsession with getting things exactly right. The wrong day or ritual matters because it breaks alignment with heaven's perfect order. Sin isn't just hurting others, it's disrupting harmony between realms. Moses learns the law is an invitation to belong, not a test of obedience. By living with heaven's rhythms, humans can step into eternity, experiencing time as angels do, not as a rushing line, but as a cyclical dance. The law's greatest gift is making humans more than mortal. By following heaven's time, they participate in something death cannot touch. Their lives become echoes of eternal patterns, their smallest actions rippling across dimensions. And so the laws are recorded not as burdens, but as love letters from heaven, instructions for how to live in time while touching eternity. This intricate connection between feast days, blood, and this divine timing is paramount. As the sun slips below the horizon, the first stars appear. And that first star signals the start of a new month. But the real question, the one that shakes the cosmos, isn't just which month, but according to what calendar. For the writer of Jubilees, this is far from a simple query. It's a detail of supreme, universal significance. An angel reveals to Moses that these festivals are so much more than mere parties. They represent specific instances when the separation between the heavenly and earthly realms becomes permeable. If humanity observes these feasts at the correct time, they sync up with the rhythms of the angels, but miss the date, and the sacred power of that moment completely vanishes. The sacred year kicks off with Passover, a feast the angel clarifies does more than just remember freedom, it actively funnels its divine energy. By gathering on the 14th day of the first month, with absolute precision, families tap into the exact point when the force of liberation cascades most powerfully from the heavens. This requirement for exact timing is why Jubilees champions a 364-day solar calendar, directly opposing the lunar calendar that would eventually become popular in many Jewish circles. The celestial messenger cautions Moses. Tracking the moon's phases will cause the calendar to drift, leading people to celebrate on incorrect dates and fall out of alignment with the cosmos. The angel foretells that people will throw the days into chaos, rendering a sacred day of witness meaningless while turning a common day into a holy festival. This goes far beyond simple scheduling errors. It's a full-blown spiritual catastrophe. In these meticulously scheduled feasts, blood takes on a vital role. Its significance isn't rooted in a divine demand for sacrifice. Rather, it's because blood is the carrier of life's very essence. Offered correctly at the appointed time, it transforms into a physical channel connecting our world with the one above. For instance, the angel explains that the Passover blood smeared on doorposts isn't merely symbolic. It creates a literal protective barrier that repels destructive entities. Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, is given particular emphasis. According to the angel's instruction to Moses, its purpose is a cleansing of the cosmos itself, not just personal forgiveness. The heavenly courts are uniquely open on this one day, allowing prayers to ascend without obstacle. But if someone prays a day late or a day early, their words will be met with locked gates. The Feast of Booths, or Tabernacles, links people to their nomadic past, but its deeper meaning is a connection to creation's dawn, a time when the division between heaven and earth was far less distinct. Constructing these temporary dwellings is an act of participation, not just symbolism. For a short time, people experience life as Adam once did, living more immediately in the sight of heaven. Every festival, from first fruits and Pentecost to the new moons, forges a unique bridge to the celestial realm, but these bridges only materialize if the observance is perfectly timed. For the author of Jubilees, these are tangible, physical events, not just cherished cultural traditions. Looking ahead, the angel alerts Moses to a coming crisis: the adoption of a 354-day lunar calendar. A 10-day annual discrepancy might seem minor, but this mistake compounds over time. The feasts would slowly drift out of their proper seasons, shattering the cosmic alignment. Heaven's doorways would swing open at the appointed times, but nobody would be present to enter. In the worldview of Jubilees, arguments over the calendar are not scholarly disagreements, they are battles in a spiritual war. Mastema and the forces that oppose divine order deliberately try to sow confusion about the times and seasons. By following an incorrect calendar, Israel would be unwittingly siding with this prince of chaos. This perspective clarifies why Jubilees uses such strong language against those who mismanage the calendar. Their failure is not a simple error, it is a fundamental violation of the covenant itself. Genuine devotion, therefore, is measured not only by your actions, but by the precise timing of those actions. Within Jubilees' theology of the feasts, the concepts of blood, timing, and covenant are inextricably linked. These events are transformed from simple holidays into holy days, junctures where time and eternity intersect. They are moments for human festivities to align with angelic praise, causing the partition between the worlds to temporarily fade. The festivals are thus elevated beyond mere remembrance, becoming a kind of remedy for a fractured reality, capable of realigning the creation with its creator through the sheer force of perfect timing. Yet, as Moses is on the mountain absorbing the details of heaven's perfect calendar, a shadow is growing in the camp below. The angel discloses that Mastema, the great accuser in heaven, has been quite busy. While celestial order is being meticulously laid out up high, the seeds of chaos are being planted down below, setting the stage for Jubilees' distinct perspective on spiritual warfare. Instead of a cosmic rival to God, the Book of Jubilees paints Mastema in a very different light. He isn't the Satan of later theology, but is portrayed more like a celestial prosecutor who has become dangerously obsessed with securing convictions. While his original mandate was to test humanity, he has since acquired a disturbing appetite for orchestrating their downfall. The angel describes to Moses how Mastema regularly stands before God, leveling charges against Israel. He points to their unfaithfulness, arguing they are completely undeserving of the divine law. This open accusation, however, is merely a smokescreen for his true strategy, which is far more insidious. Mastema's real goal is to sow confusion about time itself, deliberately scrambling the sacred calendar that serves as a bridge between the heavenly and earthly realms. He finds the perfect opening as the Israelites become impatient at the foot of the mountain. Sensing an opportunity, he plants whispers of doubt, suggesting Moses has been gone too long and that the promised schedule has been broken. This induced anxiety about time directly fuels their spiritual mutiny. In the narrative of Jubilees, the golden calf symbolizes more than just idolatry. It signifies a fracture in time itself. It's a rebellion where humans try to set their own religious clock instead of adhering to heaven's appointed schedule. As the angel clarifies, this is Mastema's signature move, not merely tempting people to sin, but to act at the precisely wrong moment. His influence isn't a one-time event. The angel lays out his historical MO, showing how Mastema always emerges at pivotal moments, at cosmic boundaries, and whenever heaven's great clock chimes a significant hour. Take Abraham's trial with Isaac, for example. Jubilees claims it was Mastema who issued the challenge to God, betting that Abraham's love for his son would make him refuse a command to offer the boy as a sacrifice. The test was the accuser's suggestion, not God's original plan. Similarly, the mysterious being Jacob fought with was one of Mastema's operatives, dispatched to derail his entry into the Promised Land according to the divine schedule. The Egyptian sorcerers who replicated Moses' miracles were not merely talented illusionists, they were channeling Mastema's derivative power. The angelic narrator is clear. Mastema can mimic God's actions but can never innovate. His only power lies in twisting what has already been created. The plagues that struck Egypt were therefore not just a liberation of Israel, but an operation to restrain Mastema. According to the angel, God permitted Mastema to be bound after the initial magical duels, drastically curbing his ability to interfere with the Exodus. This temporary imprisonment is the reason the later plagues met no magical counterassault. Now, as the covenant is about to be delivered, Mastema's methods have grown even more refined. He avoids direct confrontation with God, focusing instead on severing humanity's connection to divine time. Inaccurate calendars, misplaced feast days, and neglected Sabbaths all become his preferred instruments of chaos. The penalty for such errors isn't some arbitrary judgment, it's a natural consequence. When a community steps outside of heaven's temporal order, they become vulnerable to forces that divine timing was designed to shield them from. The angel explains how illness, strife, and chaos pour into the vacuums left by misaligned worship. Future generations following incorrect calendars will do more than just displease God. They will untether themselves from the very fabric of reality, leaving them exposed to Mastema's expanding power. The accuser doesn't have to actively destroy humanity, he just needs to get them living on his distorted timetable. The most unsettling part of the revelation is that these punishments can last for generations. This isn't because of divine revenge, but because correcting such a profound temporal distortion is a slow process. Children don't just receive their parents' DNA, they inherit their cosmic alignment. It can take generations of effort to get back in sync with heaven. But the angel provides a glimmer of hope. Even during periods of intense confusion, a faithful remnant will preserve the true calendar. They will hold their celebrations at the correct, appointed times. Through their diligence, the way back to proper alignment will always remain accessible, a narrow path, but one that is never fully closed. In this clandestine war over time, nothing was more contentious than the battle of the calendars. Jubilees is built on a single, unshakable premise. God established a flawless 364-day solar year. This wasn't just a method for tracking days, it was the very rhythm of the universe. The sun's predictable journey defined sacred time. Meanwhile, other ancient cultures, like the Babylonians who heavily influenced Jewish life in exile, looked to the erratic moon. Their lunar calendars, with months that constantly shifted, were more than just an alternative system. To the author of Jubilees, they were a form of cosmic treason. By adopting a lunar calendar, Israel shattered its harmony with the heavens. Sacred festivals intended to sync up with celestial events were held on the wrong days, and prayers simply missed their mark. As the timeline stretches back thousands of years, it is easy to feel small against the vastness of history. If you are enjoying this journey through time so far, comment the word ancient, so I know you're still with me. So what was all the fuss about a calendar? The reason for this intense passion is that the Book of Jubilees views time as something far more profound than just a series of passing moments. To its author, time is God's most sacred and perfect creation. This divine calendar was built on a 364-day year, a number of sublime mathematical perfection. It could be neatly divided into 52 complete 7-day weeks, leaving no messy leftover hours or minutes that would require future adjustment. The year consisted of 4 flawless quarters, each 91 days long, with every season containing exactly 13 weeks. Because of this flawless structure, holy days could never wander through the seasons. Passover, for instance, would always happen on the exact same date, while Sabbaths were transformed into unmoving anchors in eternity. This entire system was designed to be a perfect earthly reflection of heaven's own tempo, where angels were said to honor the same feasts on the same days, in an endless, unchanging cycle. This belief was something the community at Qumran clung to like a lifeline. A look at their scrolls reveals an intense preoccupation with this solar calendar, an obsession that went far beyond ordinary religious devotion. They believed that the official temple priests in Jerusalem had committed a disastrous cosmic error. By choosing to follow a calendar based on lunar months, the Jerusalem establishment had shattered the everlasting covenant with God. This was why these calendar wars were never just dry, academic arguments. They were a desperate battle for divine favor. The Qumran sect was convinced that the calamities befalling Israel were direct divine punishment for abandoning heaven's true timeline. In one stunning passage, Jubilees even claims that angels set the entire solar system in motion specifically to create this divine clockwork. The sun is declared the greater light, the one true ruler of both the day and the year. The moon, by contrast, is demoted to being merely a lamp for the night, not a proper instrument for measuring time. The text declares that God appointed the sun to be a great sign upon the earth for days, Sabbaths, months, feasts, years, Sabbaths of years, jubilees, and for all seasons of the years. To our modern minds, this level of fixation on a calendar might seem strange, but to the ancients, performing the correct ritual at the precisely correct moment was what opened the doors between worlds. A prayer said when heaven wasn't aligned was just wasted breath. A festival celebrated on the wrong day completely missed its divine purpose. The Essenes, who treasured jubilees, lived this belief every single day. Their dawn prayers were timed to the sun's progress, and their holy celebrations pointedly ignored Jerusalem's official calendar. They were waiting for the day when heaven would restore proper time, when the sun, stars, feasts, and angels would finally move in perfect sync once again. This struggle over time wasn't just confined to this ancient sect. It's a theme that echoes throughout religious history, cropping up whenever a group claims to have special insight into God's schedule. The calendar remains a powerful symbol of who is in control of the sacred rhythm, the priests, the prophets, or the voice of tradition. In the vision of Jubilees, three core elements, the land, the law, and time, are woven into a single, unbreakable covenant. They belong to each other in a state of eternal harmony. The land of Israel is not merely territory but a sacred space where heaven touches the earth. The law is not just a list of rules but the operating system of creation itself. And time is the force that binds it all together in meaningful cycles. When the angel reveals these connections to Moses, he speaks with urgent clarity. He explains that the land promised to Abraham's children has borders drawn by divine hands, and each tribe's portion corresponds to a heavenly pattern, with its rivers, mountains, and plains mirroring a cosmic geography. The angel then recounts God's words, "Let us make man in our image and likeness." And so, Adam and his wife were created and blessed, and God showed them the land stretching from the river of Egypt to the mighty Euphrates River, an eternal inheritance promised to all his descendants. However, holding on to this promised land came with a crucial catch. Israel's claim was contingent upon their strict adherence to God's divine schedule and laws. If they were to violate the sacred calendar, ignore the Sabbaths, or break the dietary rules, the very ground beneath their feet would cast them out. In the Book of Jubilees, this isn't just a metaphor, it's a physical reality. The soil itself is described as actively spurning anyone who pollutes it. The concept of the law presented in Jubilees is far more ancient than the time of Moses. This law was etched onto celestial tablets by God himself before the universe was even formed. These are the same divine instructions followed by the angels, known by Adam in the Garden of Eden, and practiced by Abraham long before the commandments were given at Sinai. Consequently, the patriarchs were not simply stumbling towards enlightenment. They were custodians of the complete law, passed down to them through angelic instruction. This perspective of an everlasting, pre-existing Torah stands in direct opposition to later rabbinic interpretations. According to Jubilees, divine law is absolute and cannot be altered by any human tribunal. There are no emergencies that can justify breaking the Sabbath. The commandments are as constant and unmovable as the stars in the sky, serving as fixed guides in an ever-changing world. What's truly remarkable is the way Jubilees elevates Israel's national journey to a matter of cosmic significance. Whether they uphold or violate the covenant has implications far beyond their own well-being. It dictates the very destiny of creation. Obedience to the sacred timeline and its laws sends ripples of harmony throughout every dimension. Conversely, their rebellion unleashes a chaos so profound that it can disrupt the angelic realms themselves. The author portrays this immense responsibility as both a heavy burden and a magnificent honor. Only Israel is entrusted with the secret of true time, making them the sole guardians of the cosmic rhythms that uphold existence. Their priests minister in tandem with celestial beings, and their sacred festivals are said to open portals between the earthly and the divine. This sacred inheritance is transmitted through lineage and instruction. Jubilees meticulously maps out genealogies to demonstrate how this covenantal wisdom was handed from one generation to the next. For instance, the blessing from Abraham goes to Jacob instead of Esau, specifically because Jacob is the one destined to safeguard the sacred calendar. Likewise, Joseph's defiance of Egyptian temptations is framed as a struggle to keep this truth about time from being lost. For anyone today looking into ancient wisdom, this tight braid of land, law, and legacy points to the most fundamental roots of religion. Long before complex theology developed, there were these core connections: a sanctified place, a divine rhythm, and the unbroken chain of memory that bound families together through time. Jubilees presents more than just a list of regulations. It offers a comprehensive vision for humanity's role within the grand cosmic design. But as Moses continues to receive these divine revelations, the angel's tone shifts to one of deep sorrow. He begins to lay out with absolute certainty the future failings of the people of Israel. Even after seeing God's might displayed at the Red Sea and Mount Sinai, they will eventually stray from the path of faithfulness. Despite being the keepers of time's secrets and the wisdom of the law, they are destined to turn away. This is not presented as a vague caution, but as explicit foreknowledge of what will happen. The angel explains that Israel will indeed enter the promised land and experience a period of great prosperity. But then, a gradual decline will begin, as each successive generation forgets more and more of the celestial calendar. They will start to embrace the customs of other nations. They will violate the Sabbaths, consume prohibited foods, and marry into communities that worship false gods and follow incorrect timelines. The angel states, "And they will forget all my law and all my commandments and all my judgments, and will go astray concerning new moons, Sabbaths, festivals, jubilees, and ordinances." The angel delivers this message not with fury, but with a profound sadness, much like a parent who foresees the difficult journey their own child is bound to take. This great apostasy won't be a dramatic, overnight rebellion. Instead, it will be a slow, steady drift away from truth, akin to a boat that has come loose from its moorings. In the beginning, they will observe the feasts, but on the wrong days. This mistake will eventually lead to neglecting them completely, until the entire reason for these sacred rhythms is lost. The divine reaction to this will be methodical and staged. First, warnings will be delivered by prophets. If their words are ignored, foreign conquerors will be sent in. The temple itself, the very hub of correct timing and worship, will be toppled by enemies, and the people will be driven from the covenant land into exile. However, a spark of hope pierces through this bleak prophecy. This falling away, while guaranteed to happen, is not the end of the story. Punishment will be followed by restoration. During the bleakest periods, a devoted remnant will safeguard the true knowledge. They will re-embrace their ancestors' calendar, reconstruct the demolished altars, and set holy time right again. And after this, they will turn to me from among the nations with all their heart, and with all their soul, and with all their strength. And I will gather them from among all the nations. This repeating pattern of faithfulness, apostasy, and return is central to the historical vision of Jubilees. History isn't seen as a straight line of improvement, but as a spiral moving away from and then back toward the truth of the covenant. Every generation is presented with the very same decision as those who came before, to align with heaven's cadence or the world's. This prophecy would have been both a chilling warning and a deep comfort for the book's initial audience, who were likely dealing with the cultural pressures of Greek or early Roman governance. It told them their own challenges were not unique, but were part of a much older cycle. This meant their decisions had the same cosmic significance as those made by their ancestors. In this light, faithfully following the solar calendar was transformed from an old-fashioned tradition into a powerful act of revolutionary resistance against universal chaos. An ultimate restoration forms the prophecy's grand finale. No matter how much humanity stumbles, the divine plan is unwavering. The Great Covenant, inscribed in the movement of stars and seasons, will endure long after human weakness fades. Time itself is the mechanism guiding everything back to a state of harmony between heaven and earth for the final generations. The angel's tone becomes more urgent as he pulls back the curtain on the last acts of history. The narrative shifts from Israel's repeating cycles of faith and failure to a vision of creation's ultimate destiny. These passages radiate an apocalyptic hope, suggesting history has a destination, a conclusion, and a meaning. Time will even start to curve back toward its origin point. Human life expectancy, once diminished after Eden, will steadily increase again. Children of these last days will live for 1,000 years, their hair turning gray with immense wisdom. Sickness will recede, and the earth will produce bountifully without agonizing toil. And in those days, children will begin to study the laws and to seek the commandments and to return to the path of righteousness. Beneath these terrestrial improvements, monumental events are taking place in the spiritual dimensions. Angelic armies are massing for a final confrontation. As light floods the world, Mastema's grip on power will weaken. The very partition between heaven and earth, carefully guarded since Adam's banishment, will become permeable. These are not overnight developments, but slow transformations occurring over generations. Jubilees depicts redemption as an organic process, not an abrupt cataclysm, that starts as families begin to teach the forgotten truths. As wisdom spreads, communities begin to rebuild the practices of the covenant. The correct celestial calendar is gradually adopted, bringing human life back into alignment with the harmony of the heavens. This gentle restoration, however, is not for everyone. A judgment accompanies this renewal, and those who insist on following false timelines and corrupt traditions will find themselves excluded from the world being made new. The angel describes a clear separation between the faithful and the unfaithful, a divide between those who kept the covenant's memory alive and those who cast it aside. Lifespans will once again lengthen, and the days shall begin to grow many and increase among the children of men, till their days draw near to 1,000 years, just as they were in the beginning. What's truly remarkable is how this prophetic vision stands apart from later apocalyptic literature. You won't find any epic cosmic battles, world-ending fire, or the creation of a brand new heaven and earth. Instead, the renewal described is an internal healing of creation itself. Paradise is restored under the very same sun and moon that shone on the Garden of Eden. The children of Abraham are welcomed home to the exact same land he was promised, and the final generations are guided by the very same law that was given at Sinai. For anyone seeking ancient wisdom, this offers a staggering perspective on history. Time is not a meaningless cycle, nor is it a straight line of endless progress. Instead, it is a spiral, always returning to its foundational truths. The future doesn't contain bizarre new wonders, but rather the complete recovery of all that was lost. The golden age, it turns out, is not just in our past, but also waiting in our future. In these concluding scenes, the distinction between a historical story and a prophecy dissolves. The angel reveals these future days to Moses as though they are already a memory, having been etched onto the heavenly tablets before creation even started. From this divine viewpoint, the final generation already exists in the same moment as the first. The book finishes not with a list of detailed predictions, but with a sense of quiet certainty. The celestial pattern set by the stars and seasons is unbreakable, and the covenant recorded in heaven is guaranteed to be fulfilled on earth. Time itself is an instrument of divine purpose, steering creation back to its home. After serving as a guide for Israel over centuries, the Book of Jubilees simply vanished. Once held in the same regard as the Torah by certain groups, it gradually faded from Jewish life, transforming from sacred text to historical curiosity. The book's disappearance was not an overnight event, but a slow eclipse, coinciding with the rise of Rabbinic Judaism following Jerusalem's destruction. The rabbis rebuilding Jewish society after the temple fell had to answer urgent questions. How could the covenant be upheld without sacrifices? How could sacred time be observed without a priesthood? Their answers forged a more flexible and portable faith, where prayer took the place of offerings and religious study became the ultimate act of worship. Within this new framework, the rigid solar calendar of Jubilees was seen as impractical. Its demand that Sabbaths must occur on the exact same dates every year was incompatible with rabbinic calculations. Its assertion that the patriarchs followed the complete law long before Sinai undermined new theological interpretations. Perhaps most problematic of all, its core idea of unchangeable heavenly tablets left no space for the developing oral Torah, which the rabbis viewed as their sacred trust. As Jubilees itself notes, there was of old a strife on Mount Zion concerning the Sabbath day because they had forgotten the covenant. The Dead Sea community, which had so cherished Jubilees, did not survive to defend its vision. With both the official temple in Jerusalem and the spiritual authority of the Qumran sect lying in ruins, the calendar wars that had once inspired such fierce debate lost all meaning in a world without an altar fire. Meanwhile, the emerging Christian faith was wrestling with its own relationship to Jewish law and time. While some early Christian groups may have valued Jubilees for a short period, and traces of its unique narratives can be found in their writings, the new religion was rapidly expanding among non-Jews. For these new converts, complicated calendar regulations seemed far less essential than the simple message of the gospel. The Eastern churches, however, proved to be more receptive. It was in Ethiopia, especially, that Jubilees discovered a permanent and welcoming home. The previous section ended with, "It was in Ethiopia, especially, that Jubilees discovered a permanent and welcoming home." In this East African nation, the book wasn't just preserved, it was revered, becoming a part of their canonical scripture that remains to this day. The Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church stands as the sole Christian tradition to include Jubilees in its holy canon, a testament to its deep-rooted importance. The book's vision of time and divine law continues to shape religious life there, a rare phenomenon in the modern world. While others discarded this ancient voice, the Ethiopian faithful acted as its steadfast custodians. So why did Ethiopia embrace what others rejected? The answer lies partly in its unique history of isolation. Cut off from the great theological debates of Rome and Constantinople by geography and political shifts, Ethiopian Christianity charted its own course, preserving ancient traditions that vanished everywhere else. But it was more than just isolation. The content of Jubilees resonated profoundly with Ethiopian spiritual sensibilities. Its intense focus on sacred calendars, pure worship, and angelic oversight aligned perfectly with their worldview. Within Ethiopian tradition, the book is known as the Little Genesis or the Book of Division. These names reveal how it was understood, as a deeper, more detailed account of creation and the patriarchs, with special attention to how time itself was divinely partitioned. Its survival is also linked to another treasured text, the Kebra Nagast, which tells of Solomon, the Queen of Sheba, and the Ark of the Covenant's journey to Ethiopia. Both works share a deep concern for divine election and an unbroken chain connecting heaven to earth. This embrace stands in stark contrast to the book's fate elsewhere, which raises a fascinating question. What caused its widespread rejection? Several factors may have contributed. Its unbending calendar might have been impossible for scattered communities to follow. Its extreme purity concerns could have been too difficult to maintain in daily life. Or perhaps its claim to angelic authority was seen as a challenge to human religious leaders. More likely, Jubilees simply represented a road not taken. Its vision of an unchanging law, written before creation and binding even on angels, offered certainty but limited growth. The alternative path, where each generation interprets tradition anew, proved far more adaptable to changing times. As a result, for 2,000 years, Jubilees slumbered in Ethiopian manuscripts, read only by scholars of obscure texts and forgotten by most of the world. The book that claimed to hold time's secrets became a victim of time's passage, waiting for desert caves to yield their treasures and for its ancient voice to speak again. But in one remarkable corner of the world, the book's voice was never silenced. An unbroken tradition has been upheld by the people of Ethiopia, who have long marked new years, seasonal shifts, and births according to its ancient rhythms. While the text vanished or was outlawed across the globe, it found a safe harbor here. For centuries, deep within the remote monasteries of Lake Tana and the striking rock-hewn churches of Lalibela, manuscripts of * Jubilees were painstakingly reproduced. Many of these handwritten copies are breathtaking works of art, featuring vibrant illustrations that depict angels handing the celestial tablets to Moses. Often, the Ethiopian scribes responsible for this preservation had no idea they were safeguarding a text that had disappeared from the rest of the Christian world. Through Ethiopia's guardianship, we can see an alternate version of history, where Jubilees was cherished as a divine message instead of being cast aside. From the Ethiopian standpoint, the book is neither strange nor heretical. It is simply an integral piece of God's Word, revealing heaven's perspective on time, purity, and covenant. Imagine the astonishment of Western academics in the 19th century when they finally encountered Jubilees *, only to find it thriving in Ethiopia. The earliest modern translations were not pieced together from ancient scraps, but were derived from these living manuscripts. Generations of priests had lovingly cared for these texts, their pages worn smooth by hands that never questioned their holy value. This Ethiopian dedication serves as a powerful reminder that the narrative of faith is not a simple story of progress or consensus. It is also shaped by what different communities choose to remember. In the crisp mountain air of the Ethiopian highlands, the authority and voice of Jubilees never diminished. It kept on speaking long after the rest of the world had stopped listening. For the faithful there, the book's angelic guardians still preside over sacred time, the celestial tablets still record divine laws, and the precise measuring of days still matters deeply. In this singular region, a rediscovery of * Jubilees was never needed, because it had never been lost. Then, in 1947, a chance event brought another lost cache of the book back into the light. The sound of shattering pottery, heard by a young Bedouin shepherd who had idly thrown a stone into a Dead Sea cave, would herald one of history's most significant archaeological discoveries, the Dead Sea Scrolls. A collection of ancient texts, sealed in clay jars and forgotten for 2 millennia, was about to completely reshape our knowledge of early Judaism. And among the most treasured documents of this desert community was our mysterious book, * Jubilees *. For the Jewish sectarians at Qumran, who lived in the wilderness awaiting the end of days, Jubilees was no forgotten oddity. It formed the very foundation of their worldview. Archaeologists uncovered more copies of * Jubilees there than almost any other non-biblical text. This was a book they didn't merely read, they lived by it. The Qumran community, often identified with the Essenes, had deliberately separated themselves from mainstream Jewish life, convinced that the Jerusalem temple had become corrupted. They felt true worship was only possible in their desert settlement, and the allure of * Jubilees was its vision of a perfect, divinely ordained timeline. The book's 364-day solar calendar became the heartbeat of their communal life. Adopting this calendar was more than a practical choice. It was an act of religious defiance. By following it rather than the lunar calendar used in Jerusalem, the Qumran community was effectively declaring the temple authorities illegitimate. They believed Jerusalem had fallen to false timekeeping, breaking its covenant with heaven's rhythms. Every festival and every Sabbath at Qumran followed the Jubilees * timetable. They were certain that by aligning with this celestial calendar, they were joining the angels in perfect worship. Their prayers and sacrifices, they believed, were offered at the precise moments when the gates of heaven stood open. Fragments unearthed from the caves reveal how carefully the texts were copied. Some scrolls show signs of frequent handling, their edges worn thin by fingers that turned the pages again and again. Other writings found at Qumran, like the Community Rule and the War Scroll, echo themes from Jubilees asterisk, cosmic dualism, angelic oversight, and predetermined history. The Qumran calendar itself, consisting of exactly 52 weeks and 364 days, demonstrates how seriously they took the book. This perfect symmetry meant festivals always fell on the same day of the week, year after year. For them, this wasn't just about reliability, it was about being in sync with heaven. When they celebrated Passover on a different day than Jerusalem, they were certain they were the ones getting it right, with the angels celebrating right alongside them. While Jerusalem's corrupt priesthood had fallen out of step with cosmic time, for 2 millennia, these scrolls sat preserved in the dry desert air, holding their story until they could be read again. As scholars painstakingly reassembled the discovered fragments, they uncovered evidence of what was essentially a calendrical war, a fierce battle over the control of sacred time. At the very heart of this conflict was the Book of Jubilees, which provided divine justification for a community that believed the mainstream had lost its way. What is so compelling about the Qumran texts is the picture they paint of a community that treated Jubilees not as a mere historical curiosity, but as living scripture. In certain respects, they even considered it more authoritative than sections of the Torah itself. The book's stringent purity laws, its powerful emphasis on predestination, and its constant focus on angelic oversight became the foundational pillars for their daily existence beside the Dead Sea. The unearthing of Jubilees at Qumran fundamentally altered scholarly understanding of both the book and the people who cherished it. This was definitive proof that Jubilees was not some marginal text, but a central pillar of faith for at least one significant group of ancient Jews. The sheer number of copies that were so carefully protected spoke volumes about its significance. To the people who concealed these texts in caves, Jubilees represented far more than just a book. It was a complete way of life. It was their direct link to heaven's perfect order in a world they perceived as spiraling into chaos. In the profound silence of the Judean desert, where the stars blaze with an exceptional clarity, the Qumran community governed their lives by the cosmic clock of Jubilees. They saw themselves as the true Israel, a faithful remnant holding fast to the covenant while everyone else strayed. Absolutely essential to this faith was the profound conviction that time itself was sacred, not merely how one used it, but precisely how one counted it. In the end, they hid these precious scrolls, possibly with the hope that a future generation would finally grasp what they had fought so hard to preserve. For centuries, Jubilees lay dormant in the dust, nearly erased from memory. Then came the era of modern scholarship, as inquisitive minds began excavating the lost voices of the past. During the mid-19th century, European explorers returning from Ethiopia brought back peculiar manuscripts, and among them were copies of a book that most Western academics had never even heard of. The Book of Jubilees had officially re-entered the scholarly arena. Initially, these academics were mystified by the bizarre text. Was its origin ancient or medieval? Was it a Jewish or Christian work? Was it an original composition or a later derivative? This hunt for answers ignited a quiet revolution in the understanding of the world from which both Judaism and Christianity emerged. What started as simple curiosity about an unusual document evolved into a comprehensive reassessment of religious history. German scholar August Dillmann published the first modern translation of Jubilees in 1850. His work, based on the Ethiopian manuscripts, effectively opened the floodgates. Very soon, academics all across Europe were passionately debating the origins and significance of this rediscovered book. Every new translation into Latin, English, French, and other languages brought forth fresh perspectives and even more questions. Pinpointing the date of Jubilees proved to be an especially difficult challenge. While the book claims to predate Genesis, having been dictated to Moses by angels, its contents reveal a clear awareness of ideas and events from much later periods. Scholars found themselves meticulously tracking subtle clues, references to historical occurrences, unique linguistic patterns, and theological concepts that only appeared at specific times. The entire process was like attempting to solve a grand puzzle while missing many of the key pieces. By the early 20th century, a majority of researchers had settled on the 2nd century BCE as the most probable era of its composition. This timing placed Jubilees within a pivotal moment in history when Jewish identity was the subject of intense debate. The Maccabean revolt against Greek cultural influence had just concluded, and various Jewish factions were vying to establish the definitive model for faithful living. With its uncompromising rules and cosmic vision, Jubilees was a major voice in this struggle. The discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls in 1947 changed absolutely everything. The retrieval of multiple Hebrew copies of Jubilees from the Qumran caves confirmed both its ancient origins and its profound importance. Carbon dating of the scrolls proved that Jubilees was far older than some skeptics had previously argued. The scholarly world was forced to confront the reality that this was no fringe document, but a central text for a significant ancient Jewish community. This revelation prompted a new wave of questions. Who wrote Jubilees, and for what purpose? Some scholars highlighted the book's priestly preoccupations, proposing it originated from temple circles. Others pointed out its striking resemblance to apocalyptic literature, linking it to visionary groups on the margins of Judaism. A third group saw connections to the nascent Pharisaic movement, with its intense focus on applying Torah law to everyday life. The debate surrounding the book's origins became a key part of a broader scholarly rebellion against the outdated models for understanding ancient Judaism. For generations, scholars had primarily interpreted ancient Jewish thought through the lens of later Rabbinic Judaism, which assumed a fairly straightforward linear development. Jubilees was instrumental in shattering this oversimplified narrative. It unveiled a dynamic world filled with competing Jewish voices, each passionately promoting its own distinct vision of covenant life. By the late 20th century, Jubilees had transitioned from an obscure artifact to a prominent subject in the study of Second Temple Judaism. Entire academic conferences were dedicated to its contents, doctoral dissertations delved into its themes, and a new generation of translations emerged. With these new translations appearing regularly, each scholar strived to perfectly capture the book's unique tone. Suddenly, a text once dismissed as an odd little footnote found itself at the very center of the conversation for comprehending the world that produced both Rabbinic Judaism and early Christianity. This renewed interest triggered a fiery academic debate surrounding what are known as pseudepigrapha, ancient writings attributed to celebrated historical figures. The Book of Jubilees, for instance, identifies Moses as the one who received its text, despite being composed long after his time. For some researchers, this made such works simple forgeries. Yet for others, these texts reflected a completely different concept of authorship, one where channeling the spirit of an ancient figure was valued far more than historical accuracy. Amid all this scholarly back and forth, something remarkable occurred. After being muted for centuries, the distinctive voice of Jubilees was finally being heard again. Its unique preoccupation with precise timekeeping, celestial harmony, and strict boundaries provided an essential new viewpoint on the dynamic and turbulent era that shaped our modern religious world. Contemporary scholars now approach Jubilees with far more sophistication than their predecessors. They no longer see it as a bizarre anomaly, but as a testament to the incredible diversity of ancient Jewish belief. This text, once thought to be so strange, now reveals just how multifaceted and lively Judaism was before the rabbinic tradition became dominant. In bringing Jubilees back into the light, modern scholarship didn't just unearth a lost document, it resurrected an entire forgotten reality. At the very heart of Jubilees exists a startling link, an unexpected bridge to another enigmatic work known as the Book of Enoch. These two ancient texts, both omitted from the majority of biblical canons, are intimately connected. They communicate in the same peculiar dialect of angels, cosmic secrets, and divine tablets. Their narratives frequently overlap, covering tales of watchers, giants, and heavenly retribution. Together, they pull back the curtain on a lost version of Jewish faith that once thrived before being sidelined. The Book of Genesis gives Enoch only a passing mention, describing him as a man who walked with God before vanishing because God took him. The Book of Enoch transforms this tiny, mysterious line into an epic celestial adventure. In its pages, Enoch journeys across the many layers of heaven, observes the torment of rebellious angels, and comes back to earth bearing secret wisdom. Jubilees then takes this grander narrative of Enoch and masterfully integrates it into its own account of Genesis. Here, he is elevated to a primary character, celebrated as the first person to ever comprehend the divine calendars. According to Jubilees, Enoch was the first to truly master sacred time. He didn't just watch the heavens, he documented them, making him the world's first astronomer priest. The text states he was the first of all people to learn writing, knowledge, and wisdom, and to record the celestial signs month by month. This depiction of Enoch as a heavenly scribe is mirrored in the Book of Enoch as well. The two books also have a shared obsession with a specific order of angels known as the Watchers. Their story explains that these celestial beings were tasked with overseeing humanity, but fell from their post after lusting for human women. From their forbidden relationships, a race of giants was born, unleashing mayhem and brutality upon the world. While Genesis only alludes to this event, both Jubilees and Enoch make it a centerpiece of their theology, presenting it as the primary reason the Great Flood became necessary. The combined worldview of these books paints a picture of a reality where angelic and demonic forces directly influence human events. In both texts, an angel named Azazel is credited with teaching humanity forbidden arts like metalworking, the creation of weapons, and cosmetics, skills that steered people from devotion. They also both include the character of Mastema, a figure much like Satan who brings accusations against humanity and puts their loyalty to the test. What is perhaps most astonishing is that both books portray time and history as being set in stone, recorded on celestial tablets long before they happen on Earth. From this perspective, nothing is a coincidence. Every single moment in the human story is following a pre-written divine plan. This deterministic outlook offers both security in knowing God is in command and a challenge to the concept of human free will. Modern academics use the label Enochic Judaism to classify the philosophy these texts champion. This viewpoint is defined by cosmic dualism, revelations from angels, a focus on astronomical accuracy, and a preordained history. It stands in stark contrast to the form of Judaism that rose to prominence following the temple's destruction in 70 CE. For followers of Enochic Judaism, the temple's calendar was less important than heaven's flawless one, and Moses was just one of several great prophets, sharing the stage with figures like Enoch. The link between Jubilees and Enoch invites compelling questions about their origins. Did one text inspire the other? Were they both drawing from even older traditions that have since been lost? Did they originate from the same group of people? While researchers continue to explore these possibilities, the general agreement is that the books come from a common intellectual sphere, a world where the universe's secrets could be accessed by the enlightened. Both texts are intensely focused on a perfectly structured cosmos where every single thing has its own appointed time. In this system, angels are far more than just divine couriers. They are cosmic managers. They are administrators, each tasked with a specific role in upholding the order of the world. In this view, demons act as systematic adversaries to divine harmony, going far beyond the role of simple tempters. Likewise, human beings are portrayed not merely as individuals making moral choices, but as actors in a grand cosmic play with a script penned before the dawn of time. It's this common worldview that sheds light on the eventual rejection of both books by mainstream rabbinic Judaism and the majority of Christian traditions. The emerging orthodoxies of both faiths struggled to accommodate their complex systems of angels, their strong sense of predestination, and their assertion of divine revelations existing outside the established Torah. In the period when Judaism was reconstructing its identity, following the temple's destruction, and Christianity was solidifying its own theological borders, writings such as Jubilees and Enoch were met with growing suspicion. Despite this, the influence of these books was never completely erased. Their survival was ensured in locations like Ethiopia and through ancient fragments discovered in desert caves. The concepts they contained resonated through subsequent mystical traditions, fueled various apocalyptic movements, and became woven into popular folk beliefs concerning angels and demons. Even after being formally excluded from official canons, their grand cosmic vision maintained its appeal for those who were captivated by a more mystical and predetermined view of history and time. Exploring Jubilees in conjunction with Enoch today allows for the rediscovery of this forgotten line of ancient thought. This viewpoint frames human history as intricately connected to cosmic designs, a stage where angels and demons clash for control of human fate, and where the flawless order of heaven serves as the ultimate blueprint for existence on earth. Taken together, these two texts serve as a powerful reminder that the religious landscape from which both Judaism and Christianity emerged was significantly more varied and intricate than later Orthodox traditions have typically admitted. This brings us to the fascinating connections between Jubilees and the Gospels. The earliest followers of Jesus, when they started to document his life, were not inventing a narrative from scratch. Instead, they were contributing their voices to a long-running discussion about how God operates within human history. It's possible they weren't even aware of it, but many concepts they wove into the Gospels mirrored key themes found in the Book of Jubilees. Seeing these subtle links reveals how early Christian thinking sprouted from the fertile ground of a wide array of Jewish traditions. You won't find a single direct quotation from Jubilees in the Gospels. However, their writings are filled with hints of shared preoccupations, such as the importance of sacred time, the role of angelic messengers, the reality of cosmic battles, and the unfolding of ancient divine plans. The existence of these parallels doesn't prove that the Gospel authors were reading Jubilees. What it suggests is something broader, that both Jubilees and the Gospels were nourished by the same currents of Jewish theological ideas that were prevalent during the first century. Take, for example, the opening of Matthew's Gospel, which presents a meticulously organized genealogy that segments history into 3 distinct sets of 14 generations. This is more than a simple lineage. It's a declaration that time itself possesses a meaningful structure. The author is framing Jesus' arrival as occurring at the exact, predetermined point in a divinely managed timeline. Such a focus on sacred chronology is strongly reminiscent of Jubilees, in which every major event unfolds at its designated moment based on heaven's own calendar. Similarly, Luke's Gospel starts with angelic visitations to Zechariah and Mary, where celestial beings deliver news of God's unfolding plans. Angels consistently show up at crucial junctures throughout Luke's narrative to guide, to reveal, and to protect. This powerful portrayal of angelology, with heavenly figures directly intervening in human matters, reflects the world of Jubilees, where angels are in constant supervision of all earthly happenings. One of the most remarkable parallels emerges in the accounts of Jesus' temptation in the wilderness, as recorded by both Matthew and Luke. In these stories, Jesus confronts a figure called Satan, or in some versions, simply the tempter. This is strikingly similar to Jubilees, where the primary antagonist is a being named Mastema, whose role is to test humanity and serve as their prosecutor before God. Both books thus put forward a concept of cosmic trial, where one's loyalty is demonstrated by withstanding immense temptation. Consider the prologue to the Gospel of John, which speaks of the Word, the Logos, that existed from the very beginning and was the agent of all creation. This concept certainly has ties to Greek philosophy, but it also finds an echo in Jubilees' depiction of creation occurring through divine utterance and its curiosity about the state of things prior to the physical universe. In essence, both works attempt to peer behind the Genesis account to explore what preceded the beginning. When viewed through the lens of Jubilees, Jesus' debates in the Gospels over Sabbath observance gain a new layer of meaning. His declaration that the Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath, is a direct entry into contemporary arguments over the level of Sabbath strictness. These were the very kinds of debates fueled by texts like Jubilees, which contains some of the most exhaustive Sabbath rules found anywhere in ancient Jewish writings. The Gospels depict Jesus participating in major Jewish festivals, Passover, Tabernacles, the Dedication, showing his deep engagement with the sacred calendar that is a cornerstone of Jubilees. The Gospel of John, in particular, highlights that specific events took place during these festivals, demonstrating a sensitivity to sacred timing that is also a pervasive feature of Jubilees. Furthermore, the Gospels focus on Jesus as the fulfillment of Scripture mirrors the way Jubilees frames events as the realization of what was pre-written on the heavenly tablets. Both sources view history as the progressive unveiling of a predetermined plan. The Gospels, however, tend to place a greater stress on the importance of human reaction and choice within that divine framework. Once again, these similarities do not imply that the first Christians were secretly studying the Book of Jubilees. They point instead to the fact that they all inhabited the same religious environment that produced both Jubilees and early Christianity were wrestling with very similar big-picture questions. Shared concerns over concepts like sacred time, spiritual purity, the war between good and evil, and God's overarching plan for humanity were common to both. The ideas found in Jubilees, therefore, weren't fringe oddities. They were part of the very intellectual air the first Christians breathed. Grasping this connection allows us to see the Gospels in a new light, not as a complete severing from Jewish tradition, but as an inventive reinterpretation from within it. The earliest followers of Jesus weren't throwing out Jewish ideas wholesale. They were recentering them around their personal experience with Him. Many of the very concepts they were reframing had already been laid out in works like Jubilees. These subtle overlaps between Jubilees and the Gospels serve as a reminder that the dividing lines between religious communities were far more porous than we often assume. Ideas traveled freely between various Jewish groups, and concepts that might appear unique to one circle often showed up in a different form within another. The authors of the Gospels were dipping into this shared reservoir of thought, even as they were crafting something entirely new. For anyone reading these texts today, recognizing these links provides a much richer context. Jubilees illuminates the world of Jewish thought that helped form early Christianity, while the Gospels demonstrate how those ancient ideas could be powerfully reimagined through the lens of new events. Seen together, they paint a picture of the vibrant, creative dialogue that has always been at the heart of religious evolution. Ultimately, the deepest bond connecting Jubilees and the Gospels is likely their shared certainty that history is not just a random sequence of events. Both view time as a meaningful progression, moving toward the completion of God's purposes. Both insist that heaven and earth are linked by more than just the occasional miracle. And both hold a firm belief that beneath the surface-level chaos of human life, there exists a divine pattern, a script authored by the same hand that set the stars in motion. Moving into the modern era, you'll find that in quiet corners of the world, far from the mainstream, small communities of believers have rediscovered the Book of Jubilees. They are dusting off its ancient words and finding a message that speaks directly to their modern concerns. These are often people who feel that contemporary society has lost its way, and they yearn for the kind of clear-cut rules and divine order that a chaotic world lacks. What is it that attracts them to this particular text? For many, the appeal is its precision. Jubilees delivers something many other religious writings do not: exact dates, specific regulations, and a cosmic timetable. In a world where truth can feel fluid and unreliable, Jubilees offers a sense of solidity. It authoritatively maps out all of history, from the beginning to the end. Some of these groups have gone so far as to completely reorient their lives around the 364-day calendar. They don't mark their time by the calendar on their phones, but by the one they believe was given to Moses on Sinai. Their year flows in perfect symmetry, containing 52 weeks of exactly 7 days each, with their holy days guided by the sun rather than the moon. They tend to view modern calendars as instruments of confusion, designed to sever humanity from its divine rhythm. As one leader explained to his congregation, "The world wants you lost in time, but God wants you synchronized with heaven." These communities often live apart, establishing farms far from cities, raising their children according to older traditions, and watching for heavenly signs. For them, the night sky is more than just a collection of distant suns. The stars are a form of celestial writing, telling a story that only the faithful can decipher. It's not just the rules in Jubilees that appeal to these groups, it's also the warnings. The book details how humanity first strayed from God's perfect design and describes angels meticulously recording every human failure. For those who see the modern world as a fall from grace, these passages resonate with profound truth. Taking it a step further, some communities identify hidden patterns in current world events that seem to align with the prophecies in Jubilees. To them, wars, natural disasters, and major social shifts are not random occurrences, but part of a script written long ago. They carefully track these developments, and each apparent match with the book's timeline reinforces their faith. The internet has been a powerful tool for these groups, allowing once-isolated believers to connect with each other across continents, sharing interpretations and spiritual insights. Online forums are alive with discussions about angelic hierarchies and the heavenly tablets, while videos provide instruction on how to follow the one true calendar. Knowledge, once held by only a few, has now spread to many. Not everyone who embraces Jubilees lives in a secluded compound, however. Many hold down regular jobs and raise their families in the suburbs, quietly integrating the book's teachings into their lives. They might observe different holy days than their neighbors or follow specific dietary rules on certain dates. From the outside, their lives appear ordinary, but their internal worlds operate on heavenly time. Critics, however, express concern about these movements, pointing to the book's unforgiving rules and harsh judgments. Some see a potential for unhealthy control disguised as divine order. When leaders assert that they understand God's precise timetable, followers can be led to make decisions that cause harm to themselves or others. Indeed, several groups have suffered devastation after failed predictions about the end of the world. And yet, for many followers, living by the code of Jubilees brings a genuine sense of peace. They describe a feeling of being in alignment with something much larger than themselves. Daily life takes on a new depth of meaning when every moment feels connected to a cosmic plan. Even simple actions like eating a meal or taking a day of rest become sacred rituals when performed according to heavenly law. As one woman who was raised in such a community recalled, "We knew exactly who we were and where we belonged in God's plan. The world outside seemed lost, making up rules as they went along. We had certainty." What truly fuels this modern interest in Jubilees isn't just religious devotion, but a profound human hunger for meaning in a world that seems to be changing faster every day. In a world where fading traditions and new technologies can leave people feeling adrift, the Book of Jubilees offers an anchor. It proclaims a clear and powerful message. There is a plan, there are rules, and heaven is watching. Communities that embrace this text today, whether seen as fringe believers or faithful keepers of ancient wisdom, remind us how a story lost for centuries can find new life. Jubilees, once forgotten, now lives again, proving that sacred words never truly die, they just wait to be rediscovered. At the heart of this rediscovered text is its vision of God as a cosmic timekeeper. Imagine the universe as a vast clock, with stars sweeping across the sky and seasons changing in perfect precision. At its center is the watchmaker. This isn't the distant creator who wound up the world and stepped away, nor the emotional, sometimes angry deity of other scriptures. The God of Jubilees is the master of moments, the keeper of days, who counts every single sunrise and sunset with careful attention. This divine scheduling began with creation itself, where Genesis describes a God creating with words, "Let there be light." Jubilees reveals a God who doesn't just create, he schedules. Every plant, animal, and human arrives according to a pre-written script, engraved and ordained on the heavenly tablets. Mentioned over 30 times, these tablets are God's master plan, dictating not just what asterisk will happen, but precisely when. For the book's ancient authors, this meticulousness was deeply reassuring, not cold. In a chaotic world of rising and falling empires, a God who kept perfect time meant nothing was left to chance. History wasn't random but unfolded by design, and even suffering had its place in the divine timetable. This God also expects his schedule to be followed. The text warns repeatedly that observing holy days at the wrong time is a serious offense. To follow a different calendar isn't just an error, it's choosing to live in a different reality from the one God created. The angelic voice is blunt: he who changes the days will be cut off. Yet this cosmic timekeeper is not distant. He walks with Adam, speaks directly to Noah and Abraham, and forges covenants that span generations. This God is both intimately involved in human affairs and the unwavering source of cosmic order. The balance between this closeness and control, between love and law, speaks to a deep human need for both divine affection and a meaningful universe, though Jubilees leans heavily toward order. To live with such a God is to believe each day is specifically marked in heaven's ledger. For ancient believers, this view brought comfort, connecting their lives to a celestial timeline where everything had a purpose. We see echoes of this today in the peace many find in structured religious time, the daily prayers, the weekly Sabbath, the yearly holy days. These practices transform ordinary moments into sacred ones. Our modern world often pushes a different view. Time is money, something to be managed and spent efficiently. Jubilees offers a radical alternative: time as a divine gift, as precious as the earth itself. Perhaps that's why its vision of divine order still speaks so powerfully to our rushed, modern lives. Transitioning from the previous section which ended with, perhaps that's why its vision of divine order still speaks so powerfully to our rushed, modern lives. This idea offers a powerful sense of reassurance. A deity who keeps track of every day instills value into each passing moment. You don't need to believe in celestial records for this concept to resonate. We can feel it in the clock's steady beat, the turning seasons, and our own breath. The Book of Jubilees simply assigns a name and a reason to this grand design, attributing it to a creator who is also a master timekeeper. And according to this book, we are not the only ones paying attention. Imagine gazing into the night sky. Jubilees suggests that as you look out, something is looking back. Beyond the stars, it posits a legion of angels tasked with overseeing each nation, every element of nature, and all of humanity's decisions. These invisible beings are meticulously documenting our every move. This system of celestial observers is one of the book's most remarkable concepts. Where Genesis features only occasional angelic visits, Jubilees describes a cosmos teeming with these spiritual entities. They aren't merely divine couriers, but active participants in creation, managers of the natural world, and in a more unsettling light, heavenly intelligence agents. The ancient text details how spirits were assigned to govern everything, from fire and wind to clouds, darkness, snow, and even the rumble of thunder. In this view, nature is not an automated machine, but a dynamic ecosystem directed by sentient beings. Their responsibilities also extend to humanity, which they observe with intense focus. A complete record of every virtuous act and every transgression is maintained in their ledgers, with nothing escaping notice. This information is then relayed straight to God, establishing a comprehensive, planet-wide system of heavenly oversight. This worldview would have evoked a dual response in its original audience, both solace and trepidation. On one hand was the comforting assurance that the universe wasn't chaotic, but meticulously supervised. On the other was the frightening knowledge that a witness was present for every action. However, these beings aren't depicted as mere spectators. Some actively steer people toward righteousness. For instance, angels support Abraham's turn from idolatry, and celestial guides provide Noah with the ark's blueprint. The devout, according to Jubilees, are always accompanied. Then there are the angels who cause problems, with the primary antagonist being Mastema, the book's equivalent of Satan. His legions are dedicated to luring humanity away from divine law. Mastema's approach is a far cry from the subtle serpent of Genesis. He is overt, even confronting God to request authority to test mortals. This epic conflict, pitting angels of light against darkness with humanity in the middle, paints a spiritual reality starkly different from Genesis. People are not making choices in a neutral world, but navigating a spiritual war zone. This naturally raises a significant question about free will. When celestial beings document our actions and demonic forces set traps, how much real choice do we possess? While Jubilees offers no definitive answer, it implies our decisions gain immense significance because they are being documented. This concept of an all-encompassing angelic monitoring system has a strangely modern ring to it. Our era is defined by surveillance cameras, online trackers, and massive data collection. Our phones chronicle where we go, and our digital footprints create detailed profiles. It's fascinating that Jubilees envisioned a completely monitored society millennia before technology existed. One scholarly perspective frames this angelic observation as a mechanism for social regulation. The belief that unseen entities are chronicling one's every deed could motivate better behavior, especially when no human authorities are present. The angels act as the supreme enforcers of religious doctrine, more potent than any mortal law enforcement. This reading casts the world of Jubilees in a dystopian light, where personal liberty is eroded by perpetual surveillance. The heavenly tablets no longer just record the past, they dictate the future, reducing humans to characters playing out predetermined roles. However, an alternative view sees this same vision as a source of great comfort. From this perspective, the angels are not there merely to document faults. Their purpose is also to guide and protect. The implication of their constant presence is that no one is ever truly isolated or forsaken by the heavens. It suggests that even during our most difficult trials, supernatural beings are close at hand, prepared to intervene if called upon. At the top of this hierarchy are the book's most exalted beings, the angels of the presence and the angels of sanctification. Beyond just chronicling human errors, these angelic orders are also tasked with recording human prayers. They are the couriers who transport our hopes to the heavens, guaranteeing that every single whispered plea reaches the ears of God. It is this very equilibrium between solace and supervision, between mentorship and monitoring, that imparts Jubilees with its distinctive spiritual character. The universe it depicts feels more inhabited than that of Genesis, more meticulously organized and more intensely observed. Whether you find this vision to be a source of peace or a cause for unease is largely dependent on your personal perspective on being watched. In our modern era, so defined by concerns over personal privacy and the mass collection of data, the message of Jubilees may hold a renewed and startling relevance. The book's core idea that no act is ever truly concealed, that our deeds always have witnesses, can be interpreted as either a comforting thought or a serious warning. In the worldview of Jubilees, time does not merely elapse, it puts us on trial. Every new day presents a fundamental choice. Will we synchronize ourselves with the celestial rhythm, or will we march to the beat of our own drum? Will we respect God's divinely ordained schedule or insist on inventing our own? These are not simple matters of organization. They represent critical spiritual junctures. This concept elevates ordinary days, turning them into moments of profound significance. Tuesday is not simply Tuesday. It is the third day of the week, which God Himself established at the moment of creation. A full moon is not just a beautiful celestial sight. It is a potential snare, tempting the faithful to adopt lunar calendars over the sacred solar year. For the authors of Jubilees, maintaining a correct calendar was about much more than just marking days accurately. It was about remaining in perfect harmony with heaven. Adhering to the wrong calendar was tantamount to residing in an alternate reality from the one God had created, a spiritually perilous domain where angelic protection could be compromised. The text itself issues a stark caution. For there will be those who will make observations of the moon, and this will disturb the seasons and make the years shorter. This is not an astronomical debate, but an act of apostasy, a deliberate turning away from the divine order. The stakes are presented as incredibly high. Time itself is reframed as an examination of faith, distinguishing the truly devout from those who are willing to compromise. Those who succeed in this test affirm their worthiness for divine grace, while those who fail are at risk of being numbered among the fallen, severed from the protective shield of heaven. This intense pressure fosters a unique spiritual mindset, one in which adherents live in a state of perpetual awareness regarding the sacredness of time. Every single sunset, every Sabbath, and every festival becomes another opportunity to prove one's faithfulness. The calendar is transformed from a mere organizational tool into a rigorous spiritual practice. Consider living with this consciousness, awakening each morning with the knowledge that your day has been inscribed on heavenly tablets since before the world began. Your very alignment with cosmic time serves as proof of your devotion. Every holy day that you observe correctly draws you into closer accord with angelic harmony, while each festival you miss or celebrate at the wrong time pulls you further into chaos. For many adherents, this structured framework provided great comfort. It infused human life with meaning by linking it to eternal, cosmic patterns. Daily routines were no longer just habits, but became sacred rituals connecting the earthly realm with the heavenly one. Time was not something that merely unfolded around you, but a force in which you actively and consciously took part. However, modern psychology might interpret this differently, seeing the potential for perfectionist anxiety and the heavy burden of constant evaluation. When each day is a pass-or-fail spiritual examination, is there any space left for grace? If one's salvation hinges on calendrical precision, what is the fate of those who make genuine mistakes? Jubilees does not completely overlook these issues. It recognizes human fallibility while simultaneously upholding divine standards. The patriarchs featured in its narratives occasionally fall short in God's trials, yet they are often granted second chances. Time not only tests humanity, but also serves as a teacher, providing opportunities for learning and personal growth. This inherent tension between an inflexible cosmic order and human frailty is what lends Jubilees its singular spiritual depth. It extends both the comfort of a divinely structured universe and the profound challenge of living up to its demands. Time becomes a gift and a burden, a blessing and a trial. This might explain the book's strong appeal to communities that felt threatened by external cultural pressures. For Jews living under the influence of Greek or Roman rule, where foreign calendars jeopardized their traditional observances, Jubilees provided cosmic affirmation. Their calendar was not just one of several options, it was the very rhythm of heaven. To defend it was to defend reality itself. This concept of time as a proving ground is shared across numerous spiritual traditions. From Buddhist practices of mindfulness to the prayer schedules of Islam, from the Jewish observance of the Sabbath to the liturgical years in Christianity, religious time carves out a space for spiritual growth. By converting ordinary clock time into a sacred soul time where every hour presents a chance for change. The Book of Jubilees elevates this familiar idea to an entirely cosmic scale. In this view, time isn't merely a test of our focus or self-control, it evaluates our fundamental position within God's grand design. The rhythmic ticking of a clock is reframed as the very pulse of one's faith. Even if we don't subscribe to this specific worldview, Jubilees offers a powerful reminder that the way we live out each day has profound significance. Instead of being a force that simply slips away, time becomes a vessel that we are meant to fill with purpose. Every passing moment holds choices that ultimately forge our identity. This perspective stands in stark contrast to our modern culture, which is fixated on saving, spending, and even killing time. Jubilees puts forward a radical alternative: the sanctification of time, arguing for making our days meaningful not through our list of achievements, but through our harmony with a power beyond ourselves. Let's consider the possibility. What if Jubilees was onto something? As the sun dips beneath the horizon, this book sees more than a simple astronomical occurrence. For the authors of Jubilees, that sunset represents a page being turned in the great cosmic calendar of heaven. Another day is officially documented, bringing us one step nearer to the final chapter of history. Our exploration of this ancient work has taken us through its peculiar angelic lore, its meticulously detailed timelines, and its portrayal of a cosmos operating with the precision of a flawless machine, bringing us to a point of quiet reflection. What if the fundamental premise of Jubilees holds true? This doesn't require accepting every single rigid detail, like its inflexible calendar or severe pronouncements. Instead, we can focus on its central conviction. That time is not chaotic, but unfolds based on a divine plan. The argument is that history possesses a clear direction, and our individual lives are woven into grander patterns that we have the ability to uncover, even though we did not design them. We know from contemporary science that our universe operates on dependable laws. Gravity has its pull, light moves at a constant speed, and atoms form predictable bonds. Given this, is it really so far-fetched to wonder if these tangible laws reflect more profound, unseen patterns? Could it be that time itself is adhering to a script drafted at the dawn of creation? For the authors of Jubilees, the world is coherent not only in its physical mechanics, but also in its moral and spiritual dimensions. In this worldview, occurrences are never accidental. They are the fulfillment of purposes established eons ago. Our individual lives, therefore, are not without meaning. They are integral roles within a sweeping cosmic play. History ceases to be a mere sequence of events and becomes a complete narrative with a distinct beginning, a middle, and a conclusion. There is a deep comfort to be found in this perspective, especially during turbulent times. When the world feels disordered and senseless violence seems to erupt without reason, Jubilees quietly insists that a plan is still in motion. It suggests that even when the path is obscured and its detours are confusing, the story is being guided by an author who understands its ultimate destination. Naturally, this sense of comfort introduces its own set of difficult questions. If all of time proceeds along a track predetermined by a divine will, then what becomes of our personal freedom? When celestial beings are chronicling our every action based on heavenly standards, how much genuine choice do we possess? This is a tension that Jubilees never completely settles. The text portrays individuals making authentic decisions, while simultaneously implying that these very decisions bring ancient prophecies to pass. In its pages, free will and a divine blueprint somehow exist together, although the narrative consistently gives more weight to destiny than to individual liberty. Maybe the real question is not about the existence of a script for time, but rather about its author and its capacity for revision. It's possible that even within established patterns, there is space for improvisation and human ingenuity. This is where many contemporary people of faith find a comfortable balance. Their understanding involves a God who establishes the overarching themes of history but leaves specific choices up to humanity. For them, time has a purpose, but not every single detail is predetermined. The future, in this view, contains elements of both predictable outcomes and genuine surprises, where divine guarantees are ultimately realized through the very unpredictable actions of people. What might we gain by taking Jubilees seriously? Adopting its perspective, even metaphorically, could instill a profound significance into our ordinary moments. It might grant us greater patience when life feels arbitrary or unjust, and offer hope that seemingly disconnected events are like puzzle pieces, gradually forming a complete picture we cannot yet see. The book also mounts a serious challenge to our contemporary attitude about time, which we often view as a resource to be managed, a commodity to be saved or spent. In stark contrast, Jubilees presents time not as a commodity, but as a continuous revelation, with each passing moment unveiling more about the true fabric of reality. This outlook can completely reshape how we experience our days. Suddenly, a Monday morning traffic jam isn't just wasted time, it's a piece within a meaningful pattern. A child's birthday is no longer just another year gone, but a significant marker on a cosmic calendar. Every sunset and changing season links directly back to the foundational rhythms established at creation's dawn. Whether one fully accepts Jubilees or simply considers it from a distance, its vision forces us to ask vital questions. Does history have a purpose and direction? Are there patterns in the universe that exist independently of our own making? Does time itself point toward something greater? These are not questions reserved for the religious. They speak to anyone searching for meaning in the current of life. They touch upon our most core human concerns, our origins, our destiny, and whether our short lives connect to anything enduring. This might be the very reason this text survived when so many others vanished. Its unique vision satisfies a deep, persistent human hunger for the assurance that our days are not meaningless, that time is heading somewhere, and that an underlying order exists beneath the world's apparent chaos. The sun will rise again tomorrow, continuing the cycle Jubilees claims was set at creation. As it does, we could pause and wonder, what if this ancient book caught a glimpse of a deeper truth about time? What if our days are not just unfolding by chance, but are part of a story written in the stars? Perhaps the real question isn't what Jubilees got wrong, but what it got terrifyingly right. We have reached the edge of the map for tonight. The archives of Mythic Index are closing, but the history remains. If this journey offered you rest or realization, please leave a like before you go. Comment which era or myth you wish to explore in our next session, and subscribe to ensure the library doors are open for you again.